a civil rights attorney who is focusing on income and wealth disparity, predominantly in communities of color.
Justice is the administration of what's morally right and good. Notice, though, that the key word is morality.
We've got what's legally wrong, and we also have what's morally wrong.
How do I do justice? How can I be John Lewis? How can I be this civil rights icon or somebody that's going to change the world? Got this word, justice. You break it down. What do you get? You get just us. I'm not talking about just us exclusive. I'm talking about including all of us, whether there are 5 billion of us on earth or whether there are 2 people in your living room. Justice is about all of us, just all of us. Doing justice, bringing things together, and moving things forward.
To acknowledge that the entire system has been done wrongly, has the wrong goals, which is conviction and not necessarily justice.
Now, because you've got this inclusive view of justice, just us, now one of the things you're going to do is you're going to bridge build despite differences. You can't want to get things done. You need to accomplish things in life, burn bridges, and then wonder why you're swimming. Justice is not necessarily agreeing with everyone on every issue. Justice is going to be balanced. So the next thing you'll do is you're going to create safe spaces to have difficult conversations. That includes asking tough questions.
Confident, or are we so satisfied with the fact that we've gotten a few folks that are caught red-handed getting fired that we don't deal with the larger culture?
Because tough questions need to be asked and tough issues dealt with, you have to validate each other's humanity so that you can talk, put it all on the table, and move us forward. Let's get together and do justice. All right, good morning. Time for the Community and Legal Issues Clinic. We've been working on this for a long time, and so we want to thank everybody for coming on in. McCune, Wright, Arevalo, and COPE, Congregations Organized for Prophetic Engagement. I want to say very quickly, we're going to have several guests, and the angle here is that whatever has happened with you in 2020, whatever has been going on, whether it's because you made mistakes or whether it's because you did everything that you could and you had the roof fall in, this is the support for people's decision to move forward without condemnation, without beating yourself up. Information is power. And in this world, you are so penalized for what you don't know. And so that's why we're doing the areas of law we're doing. My notion was to, based on what our firm wants to do, is to be part of what's going on in the community and part of moving it forward, which means bringing together people and information and resources that allow people to go forward. When I was asking around about who I needed to connect the dots with, the name that kept coming up was Pastor Sam Casey of Congregations Organized for Prophetic Engagement, COPE. I got Pastor Sam opening with us. Thank you, sir, for being here.
Indeed. Thank you so much for, as we call you in the community, Esquire Joe, for you and your law firm that you're working with to bring this to the community, man. This capacity is so needed. And Happy New Year to you, brother, and to all of your partners.
Thank you.
To all of those who are viewing us at this time.
You as well, my friend. So give us some, COPE is one of those organizations that has been here for so long and has affected lives and people and issues and things and situations in a way where it's like you're almost ghost. People that know to look for you know you're here. But there's plenty of people that have been directly helped and influenced by what COPE and organizations like COPE does without even knowing it. So break down for us, what COPE is, and so we can talk about how we came together.
You got it, man. COPE, Congregations Organized for Prophetic Engagement, is a faith-rooted, faith-based 501c3. Our mission is really to train and develop the capacity of religious and lay leaders within congregations and really across the Inland Empire to protect and revitalize the communities that we live, work, and worship in. COPE has been organizing in this community, man. If the pandemic wouldn't have messed us up, October 2020, we would have had a grand celebration, man. We've celebrated 20 years of proactive prophetic engagement within this community. And what I mean by that is we're not a reactionary group. So you won't see us chasing the ambulances. You won't see us, although there have been times when we've been reactionary because the climate sort of necessitated. But our work really, Esquire Joe, is really to be proactive in nature in a number of areas: criminal justice reform, education reform that's connected to the school to prison pipeline, access to healthcare, leadership development, with a major thread of our work, man, being access to healthcare and a seamless thread of civic engagement and leadership development. Because we believe and understand that those who are closest to the problem, man, really have the solution. So it's not that we're coming in telling people what to do as much as it is using their anger and energy and organizing it. You know, the role of an organizer is to organize, to bring order to chaos.
Right,
so
sure.
we try our best to bring order to chaos and sometimes not try to create further chaos, man. So the work of COPE has really been engaged in those areas over the last 20 years in this community of the Inland Empire, what we call the Inland Valley, Riverside, San Bernardino County. Our most recent activity that I'm most proud of, we've pushed the county of San Bernardino to declare racism a public health crisis, and currently are working with the county to develop a set of recommendations and policy changes and really practice changes as part of its overarching countywide vision. So we've been around, man, 20 years, faith leaders, community leaders, and some strong parents in the San Bernardino City Unified School District and surrounding school districts pushing for some ed reforms, equity and funding. We were able to reform the school discipline policy. That sort of got us a little in trouble with some of the educators around citations that students were receiving in the San Bernardino City Unified School District, and reducing suspensions and really coming up with alternatives to what we would call punishment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And criminalizing sort of behaviors in school. So, man, we've been around 20 years, as I said earlier, Esquire Joe, really just trying to make proactive and lasting systemic change within this community.
All right. Fantastic. So you kind of previewed it a little bit, but there are any things that you're particularly at the top of you guys' agenda going into this new year?
Absolutely, man. One is redistricting. Now that those of you who participated in Census 2020, please do not go to sleep. We've got to stay vigilant and push our county board of supervisors not to tear up the districts in such a way that it favors or really dishonors particular individuals of community, certainly Blacks, Latinos, and other people of color. We want to make sure that we're paying attention to how they're redistricting. A second piece that we're that's at top of mind for us is COVID-19 and the relief and the recovery and the vaccine that's being disseminated in the community now and distributed. We want to make sure that we're getting out the correct information, whether you're against or for the vaccine. We want to make sure that people are provided the right information. A third piece that's always been on our plate, which is education reform. We're still working to see that there's equitable access and funding for parents, access for parents to participate in the decision-making process, for the local control accountability plans and how those resources are distributed at each school district, and more importantly, school site. Making sure that there's equitable funding for students, Black students and students of color. Another piece that we're going to go hard on after seeing George Gascon come on as the new district attorney in Los Angeles County, and seeing the sweeping and progressive criminal justice reforms that took place in LA County. We believe we've got to push Jason Anderson in the same way. We're a little disappointed because he sort of ran as a reformist, but as soon as he got the seat, he sat. We had better outcomes under Mike Ramos. I'm probably going to get some hits for that, but
Right.
Jason
But you're bringing
Anderson,
it. I mean, and what's important, I'll jump in real fast and say, you told me at what some people like to call the jump go is that you guys don't support candidates. You actually
no,
support
not at all.
causes.
Not
You know
not
what
at
I
all.
mean?
We're nonpartisan. But
right.
what we understood, Jason was being courted, and he might as well be honest. He received $1 million endorsement from some individuals who were really some corporations and developers who were upset with Mike Ramos. So he's playing to the community who paid him to essentially maintain order in a sense. And he never, listen, go and check the record. He never once said anything about law and order while he was campaigning, specifically in our communities. And he never used the term tough on crime policies. Now, Esquire Joe, you know that is code language for what we just saw on January the 6th.
Yes, sir. And we got to talk about it, right?
Not in reference to them, but in reference to blacks and others of color.
Right. We got to talk about that.
Sworn in, of which we were building relationship.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's important.
Let me pull my passion down. We were building relationship, and at his swearing in ceremony, if he said tough on crime policies once, he said it at least 5 times, but never once said that while campaigning.
Right.
That's troubling.
Right. And so the thing that's going to happen is you're going to be looking to your organization because you're going to be here regardless of what happens, regardless of who the DA is, regardless of who the assemblyman is, regardless of who the congressman is. It's really trying to move us forward. And so bringing us back, I know that you have connected with some folks through the work that you do where the information that we're going to be providing today is going to be just what the doctor ordered.
Absolutely. So with our criminal justice reform table called Rethink Public Safety San Bernardino County, is the table where we're discussing not only these reforms that we're looking alternatives to incarceration and those kinds of things, but really looking at protecting the moratorium on evictions. Just had a powerful engagement with Senator Connie Leyva, who acknowledged her support for AB 15 and AB 16, which are 2 specific assembly bills that will be going before the assembly that's going to protect renters and protect those who are struggling to pay their mortgages.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So it's important that that we stay informed and engaged. And these kinds of engagements, Esquire Joe, not only builds the capacity of organizations like COPE, but really builds the capacity of the overall community who really don't have access to someone like you. So I applaud you. I applaud the law firm that you work for, man, because this is something we've been needing for quite some time. I'll close by saying this. Here's the part that has been missing from our organizing, and that is litigation.
Yes, sir.
Where it comes up short sometimes is when you can take people to court and begin to move to change, not necessarily even change, but really engage them around what the law says and the Constitution says as relates not only for a certain segment of people who could afford it, but for all people,
Yes,
you know. And so these kinds of engagements, man, are powerful, needed, and wanted.
Right. Excellent. What's the best way for people to follow up on COPE? Is it copesite.org or what is it?
COPESITE.org. Copesite.org. We meet monthly every 3rd Saturday of the month virtually now. Or you can call us at the office, 909-887-3900. 909-887-3900. Although we're not there now, we're checking the messages. But the best way to reach us is through our website.
Right. Well, Pastor Sam, I appreciate you. And, by the evidence that we've seen and that we know, I am so glad we're on the same team, my brother. That's all I can say. So
absolutely, man. Looking forward to continuing this partnership, man. And
thank you, sir.
Blessings to you all. And
I appreciate that.
Stay safe there.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Peace.
All right. Then that was Pastor Sam Casey. That's where we're going, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, however you identify everyone, people. I want to be politically incorrect, but I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing today, talking about the speakers. Now, what you can do if you want, I don't necessarily expect you to sit here 3 hours. This is the good part about not being in a room, because we're actually going to do this type of thing in some actual locations. But the thing that's good is that We have several areas of law we're going to be talking about, but you can just come back when your area gets discussed. And so you can be pragmatic about sticking and moving, like Sugar Ray Leonard, or my favorite boxer. And so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to be talking to about 10:35. I'm going to talk a little bit about our firm and about employment law. Employment's going to be my area. At 10:40, we're going to have Brad Baldwin, who's going to be talking about evictions. And we're going to do a couple things with evictions. We can give you the carrot and the stick. In other words, we're going to let you know what happens in litigation. Okay. But we're also going to let you know about available resources. So we're going to do that at 10:40. Linda Jackson, who's going to give us the resource side of renters, as well as home ownership. That's going to be at 11:15. Then at 11:40, Kamala Gray is going to talk about family law issues. Okay, 11:40, Kamala Gray. And then 12:15, Jonathan Buffong is going to be talking from the San Bernardino County Department of Behavioral Health. Going to be talking about suicide. He's going to be talking about self-harm, and going to be talking about demystifying and taking the sting out of needing help as it pertains to behavioral health. All right. And finally, the closer, Derek Smith from the Public Defender's Office, San Bernardino County career public defender, very high up in the office. He's going to talk to you about police contacts. He's also going to talk to you about 1203 expungement hearings. Okay. So you can let folks know. We should be up on both YouTube and on Facebook Live. Go to McCune, Wright, Arevalo, the name of our law firm. If you get in a jam, you can always go Attorney Joseph Richardson. Pops McCune, Wright, Arevalo. Go to Facebook, do your thing. Tell a friend you've got some time here. And I want to give you a couple rules of the road so that we know what's what. Even though we want as many people to tune in now as possible, because some of the information may be time dated, this resource is being recorded and it's going to be available. And after the fact. So you can, this is going to be a deliverable, and it's going to be the beginning of many products that we're going to be providing for the community. For McCune, Wright, Arevalo, quickly, I will say that what we're doing is a three-headed monster. We're going to be doing litigation. Pastor Sam talked about that. We will be going to court. And as a practical matter, employment cases, I'm going to be talking a little bit about employment today, civil rights cases, as well as consumer class action cases. But there's also an advocacy piece. And there's also a community contact piece. So this is our community contact piece, where we are connecting dots with the community and providing resources, because we're actually here to affect the community and make it better, and not just use it and get what it is that we need. A couple more things along the a couple other things along the, I'm working with my production here all at the same time. A couple other things I want to give you as we get going here. Get the link to folks now so that they can get on. And you should be able to actually put in comments live. That'll be being monitored. That could speak directly to questions that you may have. So use that resource if you can. Also, the other thing that I was going to say, the legal disclaimer that us attorneys do, is that even though you're going to be provided information in the legal realm, the presentations are for informational purposes, and every case turns on its facts. So it doesn't constitute legal advice, and it certainly doesn't, if somebody answers a question that you put in the comments, it doesn't mean that the attorney-client relationship has been established. Okay, and all facts are unique. So we should be creating cause. What we want to do is create cause for follow-up. You may find out something that allows you to follow up, and ask to each speaker, there's going to be follow-up resource information. So you can say, oh, that makes sense. Let me follow up. So you should be empowered in terms of doing that. So let me give you a little information related to our employment issues. Hopefully my team, by the way, let me shout out my team, Alchemy Studios, Jordan and Jasmine, and these cats do everything that you see me on from a multimedia standpoint. They do all of it. They did my campaign several years ago. They do the Joe Speak podcast, which you can check out on YouTube and up on all of the podcast platforms. They do all my stuff. And even now, as we speak, they are in the lab behind me, bringing on sound checking speakers that you haven't seen yet, et cetera. And speaking of which, if people have Alchemy Studios, there's information. Speaking of which, as pertains to my speakers out there, you guys can come in. They're going to come in 15 minutes early before their particular spot, and we're going to do the best we can to have the trains run on time. So for my speakers, I'll see you all in the lab, in the green room, 15 minutes before your speaking time. And if anybody comes in before that, then the team will just let them know, hey, you're good. It's great to be early, but not that early. Hey, Tony Ward, my friend, thank you for tuning in and letting folks know about the event. So let me talk a little bit about McCune Wright. This is an example of just really moving towards the things that you want to do in your life. This is my third iteration of working with at least one of the people at McCune Wright, namely the name partner, Dave Wright. Shout out to Dave, and shout out to Christy Arevalo. Shout out to Rich McCune. Okay. And basically, I have worked with these gentlemen and ladies and folks before, and we got an opportunity to come together and do something that was really important in direct response to what we've seen around us. Now, McCune Wright Arevalo is the biggest complex litigation law firm in the Inland Empire. They hit, for lack of a better term, Wells Fargo for $203 million related to overdraft fees. Anybody ever got an overdraft fee? I mean, let's keep it real. Maybe you don't have a lot of money in the bank. You got $200 in the bank. You had 3 checks that are coming through, and they ran the big check first, which wasn't going to make it in anyway. But then the small checks would have made it in, right? Well, they litigated that issue and were successful at it. They've been on the forefront of a lot of the litigation related to unintended vehicle acceleration, product liability, faulty products, etc. And they have a great personal injury department led by my friend Corey Weck. And so this new department is racial and economic justice. And again, the three-headed monster is advocacy, community contact, and litigation. So in one of the areas of litigation is going to be employment. So I'm talking about employment in just a second, but I'm gonna give you an example of the types of things that we see. Right now, we are looking very closely at issues surrounding PPP, which is the payroll protection plan. That could be a class action, but we're looking to do it nationally. We have 2 offices on the East Coast, 1 in the Midwest, and 4 in Southern California. So people of color that tried for PPP and did not get it. And we're going in another round of that right now because some of that was passed or allotted in the recent legislation that just got passed 2 weeks ago. We're looking at housing equity issues. We're looking at civil rights issues. I have civil rights cases related to people being treated unfairly because they're people of color in a store, for instance, and that type of thing. We are looking for wrongs to right. Okay. Now, let me talk a little bit about employment as a practical matter. What we see on the employment side is discrimination, unlawful termination, unlawful termination, and violation of public policy, wage and hour issues, things like that. And I will tell you, because I come from being in a defense background, I am not looking for, I think it's safe for me to say, we are not looking for gotcha moments where you have a good employer that you can talk to that made a technical error, but you always know where you stand, you always get paid on time, etc. That's not what I'm looking for, because we need good employers, okay? We are looking for situations and issues that are egregious, where it's clear that something happened that should not have, or something didn't happen that should have. Okay. And so with that in mind, I want to give you quickly a little bit of information related to some things that you can look for this year in terms of new laws in the employment realm. There's a couple things. First of all, quickly, at the risk of getting into COVID stuff a little bit, there's an EEOC claim recently, EEOC decision, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, where they ruled that companies can require you to get a COVID-19 vaccination. A lot of folks are talking about this, right? Because this vaccination came up very quickly. There's always risk with a vaccination. But that being said, is there so much risk weighed against what it is that we're dealing with in this pandemic, where you should not have to take the vaccination if you're going to work around people? And the EEOC seems to be ruling that, yes, you have to take the vaccination. So you need to be ready for that if you are going to go to work and be around people. Okay. So there's a couple reporting requirements for employers related to COVID. So COVID, you have to notify local public health agencies of workplace outbreaks. Okay. So one of the things that people are concerned about is not knowing when people around you are ill. And I understand that. However, I think that the law has kind of come to the rescue on that and made some things required. Also, you have to be notified of outbreaks, and outbreaks are defined as 3 or more laboratory confirmed cases of COVID among employees. All right. And you also have to be informed of possible exposure in the workplace of COVID-19 as well, and determine which employees the employer has to determine which employees were there at the same time during what is an infectious period. And they tend to say that infectious period is within a week or two. Okay. I don't want to go into too much detail, but the point that I'm making is that there are requirements connected to notification of COVID outbreak and COVID exposure. So if you work on site somewhere, you should be getting some information in this regard. And hopefully you are in good stead with your employer, where you have discussions in such a way where these things can be, talked about in a way that keeps everyone safe. Also, under the same law, OSHA can shut an employer down based on certain violations related to this. Again, there's a lot more detail there, but if you work on site somewhere and something is going on related to COVID issues, you ought to know about it. All right. Let me give you a couple other things. A lot of people assume that they know about or don't know about, or whatever the issue is. Again, in California, minimum wage went up starting January 1st. Minimum wage for places that have 26 or more employees is $14. Minimum wage for folks that have 25 or less employees is $13. Okay. So that's something that you ought to be aware of in case, a lot of people assume that they know that and all of that is together. But if you were getting minimum wage last year on December 31st, your next check ought to reflect an increase in the minimum wage, because it changed as of January 1st here in California. Let me talk a little bit about a couple things related to complaints that you can file as an employee. One of them changed last year, but it's important to emphasize. Whenever you have a discrimination case against an employer, you have to file a DFEH claim or an EEOC claim. EEOC is federal discrimination. DFEH is state discrimination. Okay. DFEH tends to be where I live. And up until last year, you had 1 year to file that claim. Now you have 3 years to file that claim as of January 1, 2020. You have 3 years to file that claim. EEOC is still 6 months. Okay, so you actually have more time to file a discrimination claim. Also, for people that want to file discrimination or retaliation claims with the Labor Board. The Labor Board is the DLSC, the Division of Labor Standards Enforcement. For people that want to file that claim, that time has been extended from 6 months to a year. Okay. And there are other things out there. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but there's a lot of things out there that whether they extend time, whether they allow for more agency representation of people of more modest means that don't have attorneys. You can be assigned attorneys by some of these organizations, et cetera. But it's a lot to navigate. Do what you can to talk to an attorney ahead of time, if possible, because sometimes you have filed a complaint to help yourself and you explain it like a regular person does, but you don't explain it like a lawyer would. When you file a preliminary complaint, a DFEH claim, et cetera, if the complaint that goes to court after you file your DFEH claim is too different from that, you could actually disqualify yourself. So look both ways before you cross the street that way. The other thing that I will mention before we get ready to move on here is that protections related to CFRA have been extended. CFRA is the California version of the federal family leave law. Okay, so basically what has happened is it used to be that CFRA only applied to employers that were 50 or more. And so now every employer with 5 or more employees has CFRA to deal with and to answer to. And another thing that's out there as it pertains to CFRA, you've heard many employers let you know that when you take time off, they can decide whether it goes towards your sick leave or whether it goes to this leave or that leave or whatever else. Under a new state law, that choice now belongs to the employee. Okay. That choice now belongs to the employee. So there's a lot of other things out there. Get in contact with us, JLR, Joe Lewis Richardson at McCuneWright.com. Or follow us at MWA, getting ready to say MWA for McCune, Wright, Arevalo. Follow us, take a look. And if we can help you navigate, look both ways before you cross the street, answer a question for you. Information is power. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that you have the best possible information that you can. So again, the most important thing that we really want to emphasize now is that I want you to come out of the dark as it pertains to and into the light as it pertains to getting information. This is not a time for you to lose a claim or not have a claim because you didn't have a discussion with someone. All day long, we're going to be talking to people that are open to having discussions with you. So you've got to take advantage of the opportunity. Today is a new day. You might be mad at yourself because you're in a situation you never thought you'd be in, because you didn't open up that envelope that talked about issue X or Y or Z. But you know what? Later for that. Okay. So even though we want 2020 to be over, so many people had such a difficult time with 2020 and we want things to change and be different, et cetera. We have to play a part in that. In other words, Aaron, you're more than welcome. Hey, thanks for going in, man. Hey, say hello to everyone. Let's be in contact soon. Let everyone know that the information that we've got to make a decision for things to be different for us. We have a part to play in moving us forward. And that means a change of attitude, not as it pertains to you being a bad person before and now you're a good person. No, it's just that you're going to confront directly whatever the issue might be, but know that there's a lot of help around you to help in that regard. All right. So again, make sure you reach out to us, get this information, let folks know we're going to be on for a while. Just like I said, we have several speakers that are going to be here with us, and we're going to connect dots related to things that are really affecting us in the community. Now, let me go here. One of the things that we did when people filled out our RSVP is we asked folks, what do you want to hear about? What are the issues that you are facing? What are the things that people are saying are things that they are concerned about right now? And how concerned are they? Not just, is it a hot concern? Is it a concern that's, well, it's kind of in the backdrop, kind of like me remodeling my kitchen. I want to do it, but I don't have to do it right away. You know what I mean? And here's something that we got from a lot of people, that there was an enormous amount of concern related to evictions, related to landlord tenant issues, and that concern was hot. So what that means is that this is something that people want to know about right now. So just like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we're going to give you both the carrot and the stick. So we're going to let you know what happens in litigation, because you got to know. Listen, if you're listening to me, and again, make sure you let people know that they can come in here and get this information anytime. We're going to make this resource available. We want this to be seen 5,000 times this year, at least. Okay. That's a goal that I'm putting out there. But there is specific information that is time dated. A lot of people had heard something about the eviction moratoriums. There was a national eviction moratorium. A lot of times things are a little bit more progressive in California, where you have a little bit more protection, whether you're talking about employee rights, whether you're talking about tenant rights. And that has been the case here in California. But there are some key dates coming up this month. There's some pending litigation there's some pending legislation that we're looking to hear about right now that may extend out some of these times. But I think one of the things that we needed to do was have a discussion about where we are right now. So I'm going to give you the carrot and the stick. Now, so coming up, I've got Brad Baldwin. Brad Baldwin has been around landlord tenant issues for several years. He is at the Laverne. He was on the dean's list at Laverne College of Law, and is provisionally licensed. And the office of James Blucker is very established and has been around for a long time. He specializes in these issues, and he got this honest because previously he helped self-represented litigants with responses to unlawful detainers. So he understands this issue in and out. And when I had a discussion with him recently, and he broke down to me where things are, and I like to think that, I'm somebody that's pretty well versed in the law, and he was giving me, I felt like, taking out a pen and a paper and taking notes. So Brad is going to talk with us about what's happening on the landlord tenant side, and particularly as it pertains to litigation, the rules, what can change, what can happen, et cetera. And then after that, we're going to bring Linda Jackson to talk about some of the resources that are available. So let's bring Brad on in, if he's around. Brad, you are sounding interesting there. Let's see. I can't hear you. Okay. Let's see. Maybe, do you think he should back out and come back in, or? Yeah, Brad, why don't you back out and come back in real fast? Give us some comments, guys, on where you are, how you heard about the event. If you have any questions, by the way, if you got any questions on the employment issues, please let us know. And again, you can always email me with the questions as well. We want to provide a resource, provide information for folks that they can know. And then again, information is power, and quite unfairly, I had my daughter tell me once, life's not fair. And I said, and aren't you glad? Because what that means is that sometimes you get a break that you don't deserve. Sometimes bad things happen that you don't deserve, but sometimes good things happen that you didn't necessarily expect were going to happen. Okay? So I got Brad in. Brad, are you around? I'm still hearing you. I'm still hearing some crazy feedback from you. I'm wondering what that is. If someone's got any questions, let us know. And we'll have Brad in a sec here. See what's happening. Great. I want to see Pastor. Oh, good, Aaron. I'm glad that you heard from Cope. I saw Pastor Josh Beckley of Ecclesia Christian Fellowship. And if Pastor Beckley had a full question, you guys make sure I get it, because I want to be able to be responsive to that. So Hey, Frank Garcia, my man, appreciate you, man. Good to see you. Good to see you in here. We're having a devil of a time getting Brad in there. Now we've got a fallback because we actually got some information before. We did a run through that gave us some excellent information. But Brad's going to be here in a second. He's going to break it down on this employment stuff, on this landlord tenant stuff. One of the things that I will say, one of the things that I will say that's going to come up here, this theme that you've got to really understand related to landlord tenant. We're talking about three separate periods, guys. There is what was going on pre-COVID. There is what was going on COVID from February, March until about July. And Brad will be a little bit more specific. And there's what's been going on since that as of now, our deadline and our last date related to things are going to be, hi, Avis, how are you? They're going to be at the end of January. Again, we've got litigation. We've got legislation that could be passed, and there's probably some litigation out there too. That's probably why I keep saying it. And but there are three separate periods that you've got to look at related to this landlord tenant situation. One of the things that Linda Jackson is going to be able to tell us from the Inland Empire Resource Center. One of the things she's going to be able to let us know is that a lot of the information and a lot of the help that is out there and that's available from a resource standpoint is not only for tenants, it's also for landlords. And what we know is that there's some landlords that need help so that they can extend grace to the tenants. So she's going to give us information in some of both of those areas. All right. So I think that's something that we really need to make sure that we understand, let folks know. And again, once we are done here today, we will still make this resource available where people can get to it and get the information. But again, the sooner the better for you, because some of these things may be time dated. And particularly if it's something that's been on your back burner for a while and you're concerned enough to listen to it now, or you had something come up that was something that you didn't know that is important for you to talk about, then make sure you let folks know and move forward. I think I got Brad Baldwin, the hard to catch Brad Baldwin. Brad, how are you?
Give me a second, Joe. I'm not getting any audio from my phone, so let me try.
Okay. See, this is why we have our run-throughs, so that we know we have 2 or 3 different ways to get you in. Listen, Brad, if you were talking about something hypothetical that wasn't urgent, we would come back to it later. But hey, listen, you're pulling mad weight here, my friend, in terms of the things that we need to talk about. So he'll be in a moment. A big shout out to, by the way, all of my people at Laverne Law. Appreciate you guys, the Laverne Law family. I've been teaching there for about 5 years. And long ago and far away, I actually met Brad there. And so was very interested in the things that he wanted to do and was trying to accomplish. And so he is very focused on landlord tenant and putting it together the way that he needs to this way. So Brad, do I have you in?
Can you hear me, Joe?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me, sir?
Okay. Yes, I can. We're
fantastic. Good. There you go. My man. Man, I feel like giving you a hug, my friend. So, I'm telling you, you've got, you certainly got some time, but you've got some interesting things to break down because right now, so much of what's going on as it pertains to unlawful detainer and as it pertains to landlord tenant issues in general is time dated. So, break it down for us and let landlords and tenants know what they ought to know right now.
Sure. Just a little background about me. I've been involved in approximately 1,500 unlawful detainer actions, both bench trial and jury trial, representing on both landlord and tenant side for both residential and commercial. A lot is happening right now with landlord tenant laws, especially during COVID. So I'll be providing you a cursory background as to what's going on at the federal level, state level, and some local jurisdictions as it relates to the eviction moratorium for non-payment of rent. If we don't have enough time to go over all the inquiries, feel free to reach out to me afterwards. You could go to our website, bluckerlaw.com, fill out our contact form. It also has our phone number, and my personal email is brad@bluckerlaw.com.
Excellent.
So right now, federally, the latest stimulus package that was signed, $2.6 billion of that federal rent relief is coming to the state of California. $1.4 billion of that rent relief goes directly to the state government, and $1.2 billion goes to entitlement districts, which means that it's going to go to districts whose populations are over 200,000 people. Additionally, at the state level, Governor Newsom is proposing that $2.4 billion be allocated for a state stimulus package. What that means is it proposes to send $600 to low-income Californians. Also, additionally, some cursory background, the total amount of unpaid rent in California right now, there are two different studies. One study says that that amount is estimated at around $1.7 billion in past due rent, while another study seems to estimate approximately $3.7 billion to $5.6 billion by the end of January.
Wow.
And federally right now, as you mentioned, Joe, yes, there is a CDC moratorium that was recently extended through the end of this month, January 2021. That will likely be extended again once President-elect Biden takes office. As you additionally mentioned with the last speaker, there are two different bills right now being considered by our legislator. You had mentioned AB 15 and AB 16. I'll be talking briefly here about AB 15 and Senate Bill 3. So AB 15 is a proposed law that will extend the current moratorium for non-payment of rent through December 2021. And supplemented to that, that legislation also allows local jurisdictions to impose additional eviction rules as it relates to state law. But that is one of the bills right now is proposing the current standards that are set right now through the end of this year.
So that's one of the things I'll add real fast is that people really have to look at what's going on in their local municipalities as well, because there could be more rules that give them more protection.
Correct. The other bill, Senate Bill 3, proposes extending the current moratorium for non-payment of rent through the end of March 2021. And just to touch on locality, I'll briefly talk about LA County because that is a big hub, and the city of LA. So recently, this past week, the LA County Board of Supervisors voted unanimously 5-0 to extend the local moratorium for LA County non-payment of rent through the end of February 2021. Meanwhile, the city of LA is a bit different. The current moratorium for the city of LA shields tenants from eviction for non-payment of rent for 2 years, regardless of whether they could provide evidence of a financial hardship connected to COVID-19. And also LA County, so going back to LA County, they're also considering to impose penalties against landlords who harass tenants. A good example of this would be if a landlord wanted to enter into a tenant's unit for a reason.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
So we just kind of have to wait and see. This law, landlord-tenant laws are so ever-changing. The legislator is scheduled to meet again next week. I'm sure that they will have finality of what will ultimately be proposed and signed into law probably by the end of this month, being that under the current status quo, the statewide eviction moratorium for non-payment of rent ends January 31st.
Sure.
So now I'm going to break it down to what the current status quo is right now And essentially, there are two different protected time periods for non-payment of rent. When AB 3088 was passed this past summer, it broke it down into two different sectors. One sector is for past due rent from March 2020 through the end of August 2020. And the other time period is from September 2020 through the end of January 2021. So going into that first protected time period, March 2020 through August 2020, AB 3088 says that if a landlord wants to put a tenant on proper legal notice that they were behind on rent, that the landlord would have to furnish a 15-day notice to pay rent or quit, which means that weekends do not count as days, nor do court holidays.
So 15 as opposed to 3 days, right? Everybody's familiar with the 3 day. This is 15.
Correct. So just to tell you briefly, so any past due rent owed pre-pandemic, which would be February 2020, generally speaking in California, if a landlord is to put a tenant on notice that they are behind in rent, at least for residential, you can only go back 1 year. So right now, I'm of the opinion that January would be too late, but you'd have to look to your lease agreement on that. And what I mean is January 2020. So if a landlord wanted to attempt to put a tenant on proper legal notice that they were just behind for February 2020, they would just serve them that normal 3-day notice to pay rent or quit, which also weekends and core holidays don't count. But when our legislator convened last year and passed AB 3088 over the summer, it broke it down over these two different time periods. And as you stated, Joe, yes, it increased that time to respond from 3 court days to 15 court days, which is really about 3 to 4 weeks, depending on what month we're talking about. So for March 2020 through August 2020, if a landlord did put a tenant on proper legal notice that they were behind on rent, that tenant would have 15 court days to return the documentation, which would include a blank COVID-19 financial declaration that a tenant would sign under penalty of perjury. And under the existing AB 3088, the tenant generally does not have to provide proof of how they've been financially impacted by COVID unless they are deemed what's known as a high income earner. Generally speaking, from my research, that means at the time that the landlord knew, like for example, their rental application or pay stubs, any information that the landlord had, they would need to essentially see that the tenant was making more than 120,000 per year. So if the tenant returned that declaration back to the landlord for that particular time protected period, any month of March through August, and keep in mind, I had several prospective clients and current clients that were constantly getting that declaration each month. The landlord was serving a new declaration each month, and they were allowed to do that. The tenant then would just return the declaration each month, and that would stop the landlord from timely filing for an eviction lawsuit.
So the declaration was coming from the landlord.
Yes.
Being handed with the notice.
Yeah, and that's another issue too, is I had a lot of prospective clients and current clients reach out and say, oh, well, did my landlord comply with providing me proper legal notice? And I would ask, well, how were you served this notice? And they'd say, oh, well, they just told me on the phone that they're giving me 15 days. I said, no, that's not legally sufficient. You need written provided notice, and it at least has to be posted on your front door, mailed to you if the landlord is not successful at personally serving you that notice or through substitute service. And essentially, if that tenant provided that declaration back for that particular time protected period, any past due rent from that time meant that the landlord cannot attempt to collect on that. That is protected. Under AB 3088, our legislator says if a landlord is to attempt to collect the past due rent for that particular time protected period, they would have to wait until March 1st, 2021 and file a small claims action. Small claims is usually capped at $10,000 for individual and I believe $5,000 for corporation LLC. However, our legislator, when they crafted AB 3088, they decided that we're going to lift that cap to unlimited. And that's going to be really interesting come March if the current status quo law, who knows if they'll address this part of the provision of possibly extending that protected time period to pay, from March anyway. And because in small claims, you have self-represented litigants. Attorneys are not allowed to appear on small claims trial court actions unless it's appeal or a denial for a motion to vacate. So that'll be interesting come March or come the next few weeks when the legislator reconvenes and decides that particular issue. Now let's move forward to September 2020 through January 2021 in that protected time period. Okay. Similar provisions apply just like they did from March 2020 through August 2020. Okay. Whereas if a landlord is attempting to put a tenant on proper legal notice that they are behind in rent, they have to still serve a 15-day notice with the required state disclosures and a blank COVID-19 financial declaration. That could be served each month, September through January, and it would still need to include all the same disclosures and declarations and such. If the tenant timely returns that declaration, just like for the first time protected period, that would prevent the landlord from initiating an unlawful detainer action solely based off of non-payment of rent. Now,
so one of the things I'm hearing is the tenant needs to be on Johnny on the spot about getting that declaration back every single month.
Right. And a common notion that I've seen is, tenants are returning the CDC declaration and not the declaration that's provided in the 15-day notice. Traditionally, the CDC declaration would apply for, a federally backed, mortgage. That's why the CDC created that. But I've actually appeared in court over this issue of, at least in San Bernardino County, and the judges there say that, all right, a tenant returned a CDC declaration. Maybe they didn't return the blank COVID-19 declaration that was included with the 15-day notice, but the provisions are very similar. And judges are just very weary of saying, that's not in compliance with AB 3088. So at least judges in San Bernardino County, from my experience, are saying, no, that's just as good as the normal blank.
Okay. It's probably good news. Yeah, it's probably good news.
Another thing, the most important thing about this protected time period from September 2020 through January 2021 is, depending on what the total past due amount of rent is in total, the tenant is required to pay at least 25% by January 31st this month. That's under the current status quo law. And
so if you haven't paid the last 3 or 4 months, you could still get in compliance by taking 25% of your total amount due over all of those months and getting it in by, what's the date?
By January.
As of now, right? As of now, could change. Yeah. January 25th?
Yeah, because under the current status quo law, tenants have until January 31st to pay 25% of the total past due rent from September 2020 through January 2021. And I'll even mention this as well. Under the current status quo law, if this eviction moratorium is not extended for non-payment of rent, which would only apply to outside of LA County, because as I said earlier, they've already extended that, a landlord would then be entitled to serve the tenant a normal 3-day notice to pay rent or quit for February. However, I highly doubt that that's what's going to happen, being that our legislator is convening next week and will likely extend this moratorium for non-payment of rent.
So admittedly, it's fluid, but let me ask you this. What if I am tenant X and I did not submit the declaration between October and December, but I'm prepared to do the 25%? Where am I at?
So that's going to depend on the actions that a landlord takes, because if the tenant doesn't timely return that 15-day notice declaration disclosures back to the landlord, upon expiration of that notice, the landlord is entitled to file for the unlawful detainer.
Right.
And that's part of the provisions of AB 3088 is, well, if a tenant didn't comply with the proper legal notice and didn't return the declaration back to the landlord, then during this time, the landlord could file for the unlawful detainer. However, if the tenant is constantly returning that declaration, if they're being served these notices each month during that protected time period, then landlord's going to be stopped from immediately filing for the eviction lawsuit. And the landlord at that point is just doing a wait and see approach of, all right, is the tenant at least going to pay 25% by January 31st? So let's see here. Another thing that I've been experiencing as well, and that just kind of depends on locality and county. During this protected time period, some judges are bifurcating these issues and so they're splitting it up from possession and monetary damage, where we already said that from March 2020 through August 2020, the landlord can't even attempt to collect money on that right now, as long as the tenant complies with the documentation that they gave back to the landlord. So those are not being litigated for monetary damage. However, for September 2020 through January 2021, I've experienced judges in various counties that are opting to bifurcate these issues of, well, we'll just treat possession right now. We will litigate the issue of possession right now, being that the declarations weren't complied with, they weren't timely returned, and then tolling it so that, all right, we will have an action relating to the monetary damage later. Or landlord could then just opt under the current status quo law to file that monetary claim in small claims starting March 1st. That's been my experience with surrounding counties and certain judges so far. As it relates to AB 3088, that was just one portion of it, was the non-payment of rent in that moratorium.
Right.
Additionally, what AB 3088 did, and also in conformity with another bill that was passed in 2019, AB 1482, I'm now going to briefly discuss about 60-day notices and 30-day notices. So this would apply for a tenant who is considered, month to month.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, after you get past your normal lease period, I leased for 2 years, I leased for a year. After you get past that period, you are basically month to month with the same provisions or requirements that I had during the course of the lease, except now you're month to month.
Yeah, and so just briefly touching on that, if during this time period a fixed term tenancy ends and they are month to month, the landlord, under both AB 3088 and in conformity with AB 1482, the landlord can't bring an immediate unlawful detainer eviction for the lease expiring. Pre-COVID, you could do that.
Right, gotcha. That's a big change.
Right. So right now, if a tenant is on a month-to-month tenancy or a holdover tenancy, which they would essentially be month-to-month, and the landlord wants to attempt to terminate the tenancy for non-just cause, meaning, tenant, you didn't do anything wrong, I just want possession of the property back. Under AB 3088, there are only 4 ways that a landlord could put a tenant on proper legal notice to terminate their tenancy where the tenant's not at fault for anything. And I'll briefly go into those 4 exceptions. Exception 1 is if the landlord wants to move back into the unit, either themselves or someone from their family, such as parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren. I believe brother and sisters too, but I would have to confirm that with the statute. But this doesn't apply to uncles or cousins, anything like that. Additionally, if someone's just renting out a room, because that's popular too. If someone's just renting out a room and they share at least a kitchen with the landlord would be entitled to give that notice of termination 30-day or 60-day, and that is going to depend on how long has the tenant been there. Generally speaking, if a tenant has only been there less than 1 year, the landlord is only entitled to provide the tenant a 30-day notice to terminate their tenancy. And additionally, if the tenant has been there longer than 1 year, then landlord would have to serve a 60-day notice to terminate the tenancy. So exception 1 was if the owner or their immediate family wants to move back into the property. That's exception 1. Exception 2 for a landlord to put a tenant on proper legal notice that they just want possession of the property back is if it is the landlord's intention to withdraw the property from the rental market. And traditionally that needs to be for, I believe, 4 to 5 years. Exception 3, this will depend on locality. This is where landlord wants to put tenant on proper legal notice that they're terminating their tenancy because they want to do substantial remodeling within the dwelling, which has to be at least 30 days. So some localities require landlords pull permits with the city and possibly submit plans. I believe off the top of my head, I believe South Pasadena requires that.
Wow. Sister-in-law's in South Pasadena, so.
Right. Maybe Culver City, maybe Long Beach, but elsewhere, always research to locality.
Right. And so when you say the 30 days, you mean either at least 30 days notice or at least the work will take at least 30 days?
The work will take at least 30 days.
Gotcha.
So you're talking about extensive, substantial renovation. So most commonly what I see is landlords intending to replace not just tile and little rinky-dinky things here and there. It needs to be a substantial remodeling. They're redoing the kitchen, the bathroom,
Gotcha.
the rooms.
Right.
No two situations are the same on that.
Right.
Exception 4, I get calls about this all the time, and it's a landlord telling me, well, I want to sell the property. What are my remedies relating to that? And I said, yeah, as long as you put the property on the market, you have a ready, willing, able buyer. So that means a contract is executed and escrow is open. That is required. I had a court hearing recently over this issue, whereas the judge himself went on to Zillow and Redfin and said, all right, I'm going to, just confirm what information I have through public resources by looking at the MLS.
Right.
And like, all right, for this particular property, okay, it shows that it's just listed. Can you provide any more proof that you have an executed contract with the buyer and any other further proof that escrow is open? Client was not able to prevent that. Client was not able to furnish that information. So the judge said, I'm going to sustain these proceedings and dismiss it because you, landlord, did not comply with the procedural guidelines set out by AB 3088.
Wow.
So another issue too is the difference between single family and multifamily. So as it relates to a notice of termination for that 30-day or 60-day notice, tenant, you didn't do anything wrong. These rules apply differently depending on if the dwelling is single family or multifamily. If it's single family, and keep in mind too, you need to look to locality, mainly within LA, because they're in their own ballgame.
Right, sure. It's important to know, right?
Right. So compared to outside counties such as San Bernardino, Riverside, and Orange, always first research to locality, city, as to what may apply here. But I'll just tell you what generally applies. Right. So under AB 1482, that was the Tenant Protection Act of 2019, it states that if a landlord is to attempt to terminate a tenant's tenancy and they live in multifamily, the landlord either has to provide 1 month of relocation assistance or agree to waive the final 30 days of the tenancy. And it's up to the landlord to choose which option. Now, I will say look to locality, especially in LA County, because there are certain other provisions that may relate or apply to that.
Okay.
But for single family, no. Generally speaking, the landlord is not required to provide relocation assistance on multifamily. And similarly, so we've discussed the moratorium for non-payment of rent as it applies to residential. Also keep in mind for commercial tenancies, AB 3088 generally does not apply to commercial tenancies, meaning that all these eviction protections that were passed by our California state legislature don't necessarily apply to commercial.
Really? That's interesting.
And I represent a lot of corporate clients as well. and, got those phone calls, and I said, well, we need to look to the lease agreement itself, look to the contract, because,
Sure.
you're going to see that standard language in there regarding force majeure, right?
Right.
Inability to perform due to some type of interruption. And so they want to try to say, well, that's my affirmative defense. According to the contract, there's this clause that's if there's any interruption, which during a pandemic, which in some contracts that I've reviewed, that is expressly stated. So
Right.
that's a total different situation.
Right, for sure. So we're coming close to our time here, but I think what I'm taking from it, and I'll have you have a few last words here,
Sure.
is that really it's incredibly important for tenants, commercial and residential, to really be in touch with their landlord, because there's a lot of us that really look like, for instance, on the commercial side, we expect commercial real estate to crash.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if I am a commercial owner, landlord, and I want my tenant to stay, and they've gotten a whiff of the notion that maybe everybody could work from home and we don't need the space, if they were a good tenant before this thing happened, I may want to stay in touch with them and see if I can hold on to them. So there's a matter of whatever situation you're in, having some communication. You agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, there should always be communication. I actually did a pro bono matter about 2 months ago or so that I was representing a tenant who was severely impacted by COVID-19. They had a myriad of habitability issues in their apartment dwelling, mold, extensive mold actually. I advised them to get independent testing to confirm such, and it was everywhere. Luckily, they did not have any adverse health symptoms, but I was able to negotiate a settlement and release agreement that essentially the tenant, who was behind, I believe it was at least $12,000 in past due rent, I was able to get all that waived because of the substandard, habitability issues and such. And there was no adverse impact on her credit. And that's what's really important for tenants right now is
huge.
You got to protect your credit. So as you said, Joe, yes, always communicate with the landlord, figure out what's what. I always advise both sides, have a conversation.
Absolutely. Huge. Give us your contact information again. You did it at the beginning and I appreciate it, but give it to us again. There's more where this came from, guys. Brad Baldwin does this all day, every day. But your cases are specific and fact specific. So follow up so that you can see where you stand, because this thing is going to get dealt with one way or the other. And the best you can do is to really be very proactive about it.
Yeah, if anyone wants to reach out to me, our website is www.bluckerlaw.com. Our phone number for the law office is 909-684-5454. And my personal email, quickest way to reach me is brad, B-R-A-D, @bluckerlaw.com.
Fantastic. And I'm going to have one of the staff put that in the chat as well so people can get it. Brad Baldwin, my man, thank you so much. They were trying to keep you from us, but it wasn't going to happen, my friend. We got to talk about eviction, my friend. So, hey, listen. So I appreciate you doing it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Joe. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Excellent. So that's the carrot, guys, and that's the stick. This is what's happening in litigation, folks. Okay, that's what's happening there. But here are more bright spots as it pertains to resource availability. I've got Linda Jackson here, and Linda Jackson, somebody I've been fortunate enough to meet over the years. I think we saw each other in church at Water of Life. I think that we have a lot of mutual folks, and as soon as I got in conversations with people in the community about what we're trying to do and the issues that we're trying to be concerned about, Linda Jackson's name came up as well. We've already been in meetings together where I've had her be a guest and provide information. And one of the things that I think is really important is Linda is someone that's going to let you know about resources that exist. Again, I believe that not only are the sides themselves, landlord, tenant, person that has a mortgage, bank that issues the mortgage, not only are they incentivized to for the purposes of their agreement to be carried out, I think the larger community is as well, and that's why some of these other resources actually exist. Linda is directly connected to her passion as the executive director of the Inland Empire Resource Center. A background in escrow and real estate, has some valuable points to make about that. Some of the things that you don't think about when you have a forbearance, maybe for a few months, and the money related to your resources, the things that are connected to your mortgage, like your insurance and those and taxes are not there. That has to be reset. A lot of people don't think about that. And she has a genuine passion for helping the community, including homeowners, with mortgages as well as renters. And she is a relationship person like we all are, and builds long-term relationships with local churches who are often the cornerstone of our communities, and really helps us move forward with some practical information. Again, you're penalized for what you don't know, so it's about knowing. So good morning, Linda. I think you're here.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you today?
I am amazing, and I'm so grateful to be on your show. So grateful to all the information that Brad gave us. That's on the legal side. I'm really on the meet you where you are side. Where
Yes.
are you right now? And to always give hope, because there's always hope. And doing this work for over 10 years, I've seen a lot, and I've worked with thousands and thousands of people. My first year as a nonprofit, we saw over 1,500 families.
Wow.
So, and we've been doing it for 10 years. And right now, we have been so grateful that the state of California has sought us out and said that they wanted us to help. And we are now having a 3-year contract with the state of California to help renters, to help homeowners, to help people who need credit counseling and so much. So Brad was awesome in about the legal ramifications. I'm here to talk about there is help. There is help for the tenants. There is help for the landlords. There is help for the homeowners. And there is help for people who want to become a homeowner. And my goal is to change renters into homeowners, because it's cheaper to own a house and pay a mortgage than it is to pay rent. So let me just first say, what Brad had to give us is very important to me. I'm probably going to need to really partner with Brad, because there are things on the legal side that I really can't help. But the one thing that I want all of our listeners to understand, first thing you want to do is get in front of it. The
Sure.
last thing you want is an eviction. The eviction is a domino effect. It's going to affect your credit. It's going to affect you to be able to go to another place. It's going to affect you in so many ways. I say this all the time, and people say that's so crazy. I say it's expensive to be broke.
Yes, Lord have mercy.
Now you have to pay more because of your FICO score, because you know there was an eviction. So let me just go here. Let me just say how I see this as a housing counselor. As a housing counselor, when we went through, let's say 2008, that was a mortgage crisis.
Sure.
Everybody remember that? Mortgage crisis. And so that mortgage crisis was because of subprime lending, subprime loans. Maybe some people shouldn't have gotten the loan, but they might have been targeted. I'm not saying anything about any banks. I'm just saying that was a crisis that it affected people who really got an FHA loan. They needed help with down payment assistance. Saying that, today, it is a life and death crisis.
Yes.
Totally different. So our elect Vice President Harris, I remember when we were in the 2008 crisis, the mortgage crisis, and a lot of people were furloughed or they lost their job, so they were unemployed, right? Remember that? So being unemployed, Harris at the time wasn't the vice president. She was able to come up with, I want to say $12 billion. I could be wrong because that was over 10 years ago.
Sure.
But that money was actually used to give people peace of mind while they were looking for a job. That money paid your mortgage up to $3,000 a month for 18 months.
Yes,
And
huge.
that was a mortgage crisis. So let's talk about a life and death crisis, okay? Don't you think that they're not going to come through with something that's going to help people that this had nothing to do with them? So the first thing that they did, it's been passed $25 billion, and this is in the rent relief. I'm not even talking about the mortgage relief. This is just in the rent release, and that still is not enough money. I know 25 billion sounds like a lot of money, but actually in the HERO Act, they went for 100 billion. That was before. We're now into a new transition.
Sure.
So with that being said, don't give up hope that there won't be help for you. But renters, hear me clearly. I want you to definitely reach out to me as soon as you can, because I need to get you in front of this eviction, because that's the last thing I want to see happen to you, is that you get an eviction, because that's going to make it so much harder for you to land somewhere else. I hope you understand that loud and clear. So here are some of the things that I have been told from Washington, what will happen to you as a renter, but you need to get to me.
And quickly, let's deal with this question that came across. Somebody said, will people have to go through 211 to get the rental assistance? Do you know anything about that?
Say that again? Would people have to go to 211?
Go through 211 to get the rental assistance.
Okay, the 211. Okay.
211, yeah. Sorry, 211.
It was in the beginning, but this, let me tell you, this stuff changes every week. What I'm telling you today, but I'm telling you about the 25 billion, that's in stone, okay? Now, United Way and 211 got the rental relief before the transition to Biden and Harris, okay? Gotcha. So that money ran out with United Way and with 211.
Okay, it's good to know.
So what I want you to know is it's coming back, whether it's with United Way, whether it's with 211. I'm not clear on that yet, and I don't want to give false information, but if you call me, I will make sure you get that information, how you can qualify, because the next thing I'm going to tell you is that with this $25 billion, that is put there to help you, provided you qualify, to pay your rent, your back rent, for a year, for 12 months. And in some cases, they'll go as far back as 15 months.
Wow.
So that's what's hot off the press right now. Now, how they're going to do that, call me and let me find out for you. Now,
make sure we have your contact information. I know you got another 10 minutes, but give us your contact information right now.
Contact information. You can go to my website, which is www.iercsb.org. So that's iercsb.org, or you can call at area code 909-887-8700. I've had that number for over 10 years. I haven't changed. So that number again is 909-887-8700.
And you also got a great description in YouTube that we clicked on that people could copy and paste and go into, that we have on your slide as well. So, that describes what it is that you do. So anyway, continue. I just want to make sure people had that, because it's real hot right now, and this information is being provided and people are paying attention. So, it's really important. So.
Okay. All right. So going forward, I don't want to miss anything. So I'll back up. I want to tell you just a quick little story, and this is true. This because of the eviction moratorium that's over all of the United States. Okay, it's not just in California or in the Inland Empire. So in Ohio, a young couple, first time in their apartment, both college grads, both good jobs, a baby in their arms, got an eviction. They had to go to court, scared as all get out. in tears because they thought they were living the perfect dream, home, having their apartment. When they got to the judge, you want to know the first thing the judge asked them? Have you talked to a housing counselor? Or have you talked to legal aid? Or have you contacted your landlord?
Sure.
They said no to all of that. So, because they never talked to the landlord, they hadn't talked to a housing counselor, they haven't talked to legal aid, he actually had legal aid in his chambers or in his court. Sure. He said, I am going to postpone your eviction and I'm going to send you to legal aid so legal aid can give you some counsel like Brad, and then you're going to come back. You see what I mean? We got to get in front of it. You don't want to go there scared. And I know what it's like to be scared. I know what it's like when you don't know what you're going to do. I know what it's like when you don't know how to pay your bills, because some of you are sitting there right now knowing that you don't have to pay your rent, knowing that you got the stimulus that just came down. But when that stops, you're going to need me. I don't want you to call me then. I want to get in front of it now. Do you understand? I work with the churches to the point that the churches are my biggest supporters. The people are in the churches. So what we did is that we went to the churches to say, how can we help? How can we get this information out? And this is what we're doing right now to say, call us now and not when the Band-Aid comes off. There are so many of you right now that have a forbearance. Most of us have an FHA loan, a Fannie Mae, a Freddie Mac, a government-backed loan. Now you remember, if it was COVID-19, if it was the CARES Act, and it happened after March 30th, anything prior meant that it didn't have anything to do with COVID. That's another situation that you need to call me about, because that's a foreclosure right there, because you may not have gotten the coverage that the ones of us who were current with our mortgage, but now we had lost our jobs, or our money wasn't the same, or one of us lost a wife, or the husband lost a job and the wife is still working, or the husband is still working, but the income has decreased. All you had to do, all you had to do was to call your servicer, tell your servicer that you have been affected by COVID-19. They couldn't even ask you for no documentation. The FHA loans couldn't even tell you no. So they gave you 180 days, which meant they froze your payment, your mortgage payment. And then if you were still affected, you could call back again and get another 180 days, and they still couldn't ask you for no documentation. So I'm telling you, that Band-Aid is getting ready to come off for the ones who have gotten at least 360 days. That's almost a year. So I don't want you to call me after the fact. I want you to call me now so we can get in front of it. The calls that I'm getting now are that some people are saying, Linda, I want to come off of the forbearance, but my wife is not working and I'm the only one working. Now I need a loan modification. So I want you to call me now so I can get in front of that. Let me tell you what really gets you the help that you need. You think that I've got to have so much money. You think I got to have this. What it is your narrative. Your narrative is what gets you the help. That is so, so, so important. I know I'm a little animated, but when you're passionate about what you do, and when you know that your steps are ordered by God, and you know you're commissioned to help God's people, that's who I am. And I sound like I'm begging you, because I am. And the crazy thing about this doesn't cost you a dime.
Right.
I can't charge you a penny for this.
Right.
This is all because I'm funded to help my people in the community. But this is really crazy. Now I'm funded to help the state of California. So we're here to empower you, to give you the help that you need, to make the right decisions before you go. My whole thing is to raise the awareness in you, meet you exactly where you are right now, and to get you where you want to be. So, like I said, it is expensive to be broke. So
Yes,
I
it is.
want you to call me. I don't know how much time I have. I just
Yeah, you're
talked.
good. You're good. You're right on time. You're perfect. It's fantastic. I want to add a couple things. We've had some people get in contact with us in direct response. Got a lot of hits to what you're saying. Thanks, Paulette Gray, for coming in. Who works at Inland County's Legal Services? They help with evictions as well. That's another point that we want to make. Is that there are a lot of resources out there. And Paulette, I want to make sure I incorporate you in some of the stuff that we do in the future for that very reason. There are some great organizations that provide legal help, that provide eviction help, eviction defenses, and things like that. There is a myriad of information out here that people can connect to, and you have a whole lot of passionate people behind it. I know Paulette is very passionate about what she does, as is Linda, as is Brad, as are all these folks. It's really, really important for us to remember. I mean, I think hopefully what you got from everyone so far, and including and especially Linda right now, is that we are not people that are not energetic about rolling our sleeves up and trying to help you in a situation. Gone are the moments where you need to be sheepish about what you're going through because you've never been through it before, because you're embarrassed, or because you just don't know where to start. You know what I mean? So I guess that'd be a good last question. We gave them a lot of information, but Linda, the person that is, they feel like they're down on their luck, they're mad at themselves or whatever else. What's the first thing that they can do? Because a lot of times it's about putting one foot in front of the other and stepping one thing at a time. Quickly, I'll say, when I get a big plate at Lowry's, I go once every 2 years with some friends of mine, and there's this big, huge, enormous, prime rib and all this other stuff. I don't trip because my mouth is small relatively, right? I can't get it because I've got forks and spoons and knives to break it down and take it one thing at a time. So how does somebody, let's reiterate how somebody takes it one thing at a time.
The first thing you want to do is, like I said, this is a life and death crisis. So you're not going to be able to blame yourself anymore about, I dealt with fathers and husbands who felt like they let their family down.
Yes.
The first thing you want to do is that you want to get the knowledge, because guess what? Our people, we perish because we don't have the knowledge and we don't know the first steps to take. But let me tell you, when you will start to have what God says, sweet, sweet sleep, is when you start putting your affairs in order. I hear you. You got a eviction. What, Linda, what am I going to do? I'm so far gone right now. I don't even know what to do. I can help you with that. That's what I want you to know. I can help you with that. I can get you back on the road to recovery. But the more, and I've done it, I've buried my head in the sand. When my husband died, I didn't know what I was going to do. And I buried my head in the sand. But really, until I start putting things in order, was the only time I could get rest and sweet sleep. I know you guys are not getting no sleep. I know you will all know that you're getting that stimulus and it's okay right now. But in the late night hours, you are up trying to figure out, what am I going to do? And I'm telling you, it starts with making the phone call. Get information. It's not going to cost you anything. Please believe me, I've been where you are, not knowing what to do, sitting in a dark room trying to figure it out, can't sleep. Let me say what goes on in your home. You're not a good husband. You're not a good wife. You're not a good mother. You're not a good sister. You're not a good aunt, because right now you can't be. You are stressed to the max. You can figure this out. So you take another drink. You take another sip because you want to deaden the pain. It ain't going away, y'all, until you address it. I'm begging you. I'm begging you to call me. Just
Yeah.
call me. Try it. You will have
Fantastic.
everything to lose, but everything to gain.
That's
Let's
right.
get in front of it.
That's
Okay,
right.
guys? Let's
Fantastic. Linda Jackson, Inland Empire Resources Center. If you don't know, now you know, just like I have come to learn. So I'm looking forward to our continued work together, helping move people in the community forward, one person at a time, one household at a time. In your case, one mortgage at a time, maybe one rental situation at a time. Let's just put one foot in front of the other. Linda, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I just want to say this. If you're a first-time home buyer, we will help you with that down payment assistance. I mean, please just call.
All
Thank
right.
you, Joe. Thank you. I'm so
You're
grateful.
more than welcome. Appreciate you greatly. All right. So there's your information on housing and evictions, etc. You can follow up with Brad. You can follow up with Linda. You can rewind this. This will be available as a resource later on. Information is key, is power, and you are penalized for what you don't know. So it's important to get in the know. All right. So what we've done, and I mentioned it before, but I'll let you know who we have coming up. I'm going to bring Kamala Gray in a minute here, and she's 1140. And who is a family law lawyer from Chung and Ignacio. Then I'm going to bring on Jonathan Buffon from the County Department of Behavioral Health, and that's going to be at 12:15. And then at 12:40, we're going to bring on Kimberly Lewis from Pro Se Legal, talking about legal services, helping you find that middle ground between needing a lawyer, but maybe you don't quite need a lawyer, but you need a little bit more help than doing it yourself. And finally, my closer, Derek Smith from the Public Defender's Office in San Bernardino County. So you can tell people, and he's coming on at 1:05. So let folks know, listen, you need to go and have some sunflower seeds or go for a run or whatever your situation is. Go do it, but make sure you make it back in time to see the information and the resource that you need to see. Thank you for my producer reminding me to look in the camera. So next up, let's talk about family law. You know, COVID-19 has done some things. You can't go to work, assuming that your job is still there, but you can't be in the physical site. And so now you're home more. Now you're trying to adjust your home to become a workplace. Now you're around people that you have to be around a little bit more than you used to have to be around them. And if you got any issues, there's the potential for fireworks. I mean, I'm just being real here. And for some people, and we'll talk about how COVID has become a mental health issue for some folks. But as a practical matter, next door to that is the notion that there end up being family law issues because economic circumstances have changed, physical circumstances have changed. You're not going into work now. Maybe for some of us that went to work and you could be away from the kids, away from the spouse, from the significant other. You didn't have to deal with the spouse or significant other, and you become accustomed to that, taking advantage of that. And so that's changed things for a lot of folks. And so that's why we want to talk about some family law issues here. Kamala should be coming up in a minute here. Kamala Gray is, incredible, been a lawyer almost 20 years. I will say the first of 3 times that she wants you to know she went to Spelman. And I'm telling you, listen, Spelman women, Morehouse men, that is a real thing. Do not get that twisted. Okay. Kamala is from this area. She came up in Riverside. A big shout out to her mom and dad, Overseer Gray and Lady Gray, and who are wonderful folks. And Kamala, she has really landed in the family law area to really help people where they are. She went to Seattle University Law School, so she has been around to go and get the education to come back and help her community. So she's back where she was and has been for many years. She's been a California lawyer since 2003. So do we have Kamala? Kamala.
Yay, hi. Good afternoon.
I just want to say, I've just said Spelman once, but I'll say Spelman twice. Kamala went to Spelman. Everybody stop for a second. Everybody stop. And if we're in church, here's what we would do. Turn to your neighbor and say, Kamala Gray went to Spelman, and it's a serious thing. What is the mascot at Spelman, by the way?
We, when I was there, we were the Jaguars, but right now we don't have sports. So,
Oh, okay.
yes,
But
we
are
are.
you still technically Jaguars? Or are you? Okay, gotcha.
Without sport
All right.
teams, we don't need a mascot. We are, we are Spelman College women, and I am proud to say that I am not only just an attendee, I am a graduate.
That's
of
right.
our
Okay. That's right. That's great. Fantastic.
Yes.
So you are here to help us dispel some rumors related to family law. I had a 10th grade English teacher who I'm still in touch with, Mrs. Ray. Hi, Mrs. Ray. And she used to talk about our stories that we would read. And she said there's always this dramatic irony where things seem one way, but they're actually another way. And so you're here to help us dispel some rumors related to family law. So go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you again for allowing me to be a part of this wonderful, wonderful event. It's so very needed. And I've been watching, I almost forgot to log on because I was watching on Facebook some of the great information that's being handed out. So when I talk about family law and the myths that I'm going to refer to, it's in the areas of divorce, or what we call dissolution in California, legal separation, issues of child custody, child visitation, child support, spousal support, property division, domestic violence restraining orders. And I know there are other issues where we deal with children, but that's not necessarily the realm of this specific family law that I would be talking about. For example, guardianships from the probate court, and then there are juvenile delinquency, juvenile dependency issues that are held in the juvenile court. So just along the theme of what is prevalent right now, one of the biggest questions and one of the biggest myths that we're seeing with COVID is that we are having parents decide, I am more diligent with COVID than the other parent, so I can keep my kids away from the other parent. That is not true. It's really important that if you have child custody orders and you would like to see a change in the orders, that you decide to go to the court to change the orders, or you work with the other parent and your parties come to an agreement regarding those orders, because a violation of the court orders is going to be treated the same way. And honestly, a lot of the courts are not seeing a parent that is not doing what you want in regards to COVID as an emergency. So it's definitely a time for parents to co-parent with this stressful situation going on.
Right.
Another issue that we're having that I see a lot is this myth of a common law marriage in California, and it ties into some other issues. There is no common law marriage. You can live and be together with somebody for 20 years, and the court's not going to recognize you as a spouse. And so that's very important when you're talking about issues of paternity, of owning property, things like that. It's really important to know that California does not recognize a common law marriage.
That's huge. A lot of people don't know that.
It is so common, and unfortunately, I've had a lot of consultations where people have missed out on getting their fair share of property or things like that because they thought, I had a common law spouse. It doesn't exist in this state. Another thing that's important is if two parties decide to have a child and they're not married, even if the paternity is established on birth certificate, and I can't make this gender specific because we are a state that recognizes parents from either gender, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have the right to see your child whenever you want to. It is always best to get some sort of order, or once again, you can get an agreement with the other party to make sure that you have your rights established. And that's really important now because people have more time. And so they think, well, I have more time, I'm just going to go get my kids. And it's creating tension. And with that comes along with, unfortunately, there is an uptick in domestic violence at this time. People are under great strain, great stress. They're making decisions that they normally wouldn't make. Some people are in situations where they don't necessarily, I'll come back to your question, Paulette, where they don't necessarily want to be with a party, but they're forced to be with that party. And so, unfortunately, we are coming into situations where people are not just hitting each other. Domestic violence is so much more than I hit the other party. It's disturbing the peace. It's breaking somebody's property. It's throwing things at someone. It's calling someone names. It's locking them in the rooms. It's so many different things that are happening that is causing an increase in domestic violence that we just want to be careful and figure out other outlets and ways to express our frustrations than on the people that live within our house. And this is not just the relationship of people that are in a relationship. It could be your mother, your father, your kids, people that you live with. All of those are persons that can come and seek domestic violence prevention orders. And to go back to Paulette's question, what does having a common law marriage mean? There's a lot of people that believe that if you live with someone and you have a relationship with them and you're sharing expenses and you have kids together and you've been doing this for more than 6 years, that in the eyes of the law, you are married. You are treated as a married couple. So there may be some states, and I know there are some states that recognize that. California does not recognize that at all. All right, so it's really important that people understand that it matters in probate cases and everything. So I know this isn't a family law issue, but if you are in a relationship like that and you don't have your testamentary documents, please get them together because that is a big issue.
It really costs a lot of money. And back to your point in a second, it gets into this larger issue. If you try to work this stuff out later, when there are triggering events, like, you're going to talk about this, when you have things in one person's name and some of this kind of stuff. And now everybody decides to break up. Now you actually have to, and you can't get along. You actually have to spend money trying to get that issue resolved when it could have happened with a conversation or some knowledge of an expectation at the beginning and say, okay, I will do things way X or way Y to prevent problems later.
Absolutely. And you're right on target. That was my next myth that I hear a lot about. A lot of people think if I buy a car, if I buy a house, I work in my job, I have my retirement, and so it's in my name only, so it's mine. And if our relationship, if our marriage dissolves, because it's in my name, it's mine. California is a community property state. So therefore, there is presumption that everything, regardless of what person's name on it, has to be shared with the partners of that community. And that goes the same for debts. And so it's important that you are having honest conversations with your significant other about what debts are out there, because one of the most difficult things that I have clients that have to deal with is that a partner doesn't know about a significant debt and then they're getting a divorce and they're responsible for it. So it's really important that couples talk and they know what's going on, because if there is a demise of that relationship, it's really hard to get past the emotions and get to the logic of dissolving a marriage. And are you putting that question up for me? Because it's kind of cut off. I think it says something about when parents are doing.
There's one that I see is when the parents are doing drugs in front of kids, like marijuana and others. Is this considered a form of domestic violence, or what is it, and how is it actionable?
Yeah, so there are different layers to this particular question. So if the parent is doing drugs in front of the kids and being neglectful to the kids and doing one of those actions that we can get a restraining order for, then yes, you can seek domestic violence prevention. You can also go to the court and ask for the court, especially if the parents aren't living together and they have some sort of parenting relationship established. So if that's the case, you need to go to the court, get orders to get that party away from the parent. That is also one of the things that goes into the realm of the juvenile dependency court, because that can be considered something negligent, something where you're affecting the welfare of your child. And so if it is really extreme to the point to where a parent can't go to the family law court, get the assistance, get the help, or the parent chooses not to go to the family law court and get the help and the assistance that they need, then the juvenile court will step in to try to assist the parents. And so that's a good thought. Community property state, unless the prenuptial agreement is in place, and except in the case of child support. Right, you cannot waive child support with the prenup. But it's very important, if you have a prenup, to make sure your prenup stays accurate and current.
Yes.
Because a lot of people will get a prenup, and what you have, especially if you have like a marriage of over 10 years or things like that, if there's property that is not addressed in the prenup, or if your prenup is not drafted correctly, then that prenup may not be valid for certain aspects. In addition, it's really important that you seek legal advice when getting a prenup. I don't know if, a while ago, the owners of the Dodgers got a dissolution, and there was a prenup in place. But unfortunately, one of the parties didn't have their own attorney. So the court invalidated their prenup, and it opened a whole can of worms. So it's really important, if you have a prenup, that you have it done right. And also the issue with cannabis, it is very true. It's legal in California. So it's very important that parents understand that you can't necessarily come in the court and say, hey, the other parent uses cannabis, so therefore I should have custody. But you cannot use cannabis in front of your kids to where it is affecting your children. It's the same as family law courts make orders saying can't smoke tobacco in front of your children. And I think that that comment goes to that. It's also the same as alcohol is very legal, but we get to make rules and regulations to protect your children, even though cannabis is legal. So it's very important. And I don't want to make this racial, but for my brothers and sisters, I see it a lot in court. Be careful with how you are using cannabis in front of your children.
Right. I mean, a lot of people think, a lot of folks think that because cannabis is legal, and I see this sometimes with folks in the college sphere, because the work that I do with the colleges and speaking there, is that they think that because it's legal in California, that first of all, that means that you can be stoned out of your mind, where you can't do the things that you need to do. And two, that people won't hold that against you from a presentation standpoint. Okay. Right. It's still a matter of, is someone, present, is someone cognizant and doing all of the things that they need to do related to that. And if you're not doing that, whether it's because of cannabis or whether it's because of drinking or whether it's because of something else, you are not better off for that. So, the legality of cannabis in California, in the state of California, does not in and of itself mean that your use should be unfettered, and that the way that you are as a person can be explained and mitigated by the fact that you have stress, and so therefore you need to smoke herb. Okay, so if you're a parent, you still got to be a parent. If you're a husband, if a wife, or whatever the situation may be, a spouse, you still have to do that, and a lot of people don't get that sometimes. So.
All right, and I don't know where I am on time, so let me know if I'm close.
Yeah, you got some more time. You're close. I know you want to be close, but you're flowing and everybody's loving you. So, so tell us, if you've got a couple more, talk about this. How easy or how hard is it to get into court right now with COVID going on? And I know that some things are handled or more likely to be handled on an emergency basis, and are certain types of family law cases in that category.
Yes. So it's definitely very difficult to get cases in front of a judge because of COVID. So different counties are doing things different ways. Riverside County is doing the majority of their hearings via the telephone. So unless you have an emergency hearing or a domestic violence hearing, you're not getting your family law hearing in front of a judge. And that's a little bit of a disadvantage, because body language means a lot when you're communicating things. So it's very important that you understand what's happening. San Bernardino County is actually limiting the amount of people that can be in the family law court, which means that we have to limit the amount of people that can be on calendar. So you have to be prepared that if you have an issue regarding family law, you might have to wait some time to be able to get into the court. There's also rules about filing documents. A lot of these courts are not allowing you to file documents in person. So now you have to find resources to be able to fax file or drop your documents at the court and wait for them to be processed. And in both of the counties, we have less people working at the court, so it's taking a lot longer for things to be processed. You definitely want to exhibit some patience with court staff, as well as, I know some of my clients are getting frustrated because there are things that they're used to me being able to do, like clockwork. And even we attorneys, we are delayed because we have to wait for the courts to be able to process some things. So you can always seek the services. There are mediations. There are, for example, Paulette Gray. I'm going to shout out my sister-in-law. She works at Inland County Legal Services. They have assistance for people that are trying to work on family law issues. You can go there, and if you guys can work something out, that is great. So if there's a way to work things out where you need less court time, and I suggest you and your significant other or your other parent try to work out things to do that. I really want to talk about some of the myths regarding child custody. Child custody is not mom's game to lose. It's really important that people understand that. That courts see both parents as equal as possible. It's just very important. And what I hear from a lot of men is, since it's mom's, I just let her do what she needs to do, or I know the court's going to go with mom anyway. And it's very important that fathers or the parent that is out of the house working or things like that understand that the courts usually will try to start you out on equal footing, and they're going to look for the best interest of your child. So it may be in some cases that a child is better to live with father, and it's important for both parents to fight for the best interest of the child and not to one up the other parent or to be worried about the amount of child support that the child is going to receive. It is really, really important that everybody is focused on the best interest of the child, because that's the standard that the court is looking for.
Huge.
Along those same lines, there are some myths regarding child support. If you have what a lot of people call a 50-50 custody, where you have joint legal, joint physical custody. And let me break those down before I get to the myth. Legal custody is who's making the decisions for the children. Where are the kids going to school? What doctors are the kids seeing? Where are the children going to live? So a lot of people have joint legal custody. Physical custody is where are the children going to live? So if you're sharing the decisions for the kids and you're sharing where the kids are going to stay, that does not mean you don't have to pay child support. We have a very complicated calculator that we use to come up with guideline child support. And even if you're a parent, I had a case where I had a parent, he had 90% custody, but because his income was substantially larger than his partner's income, he ended up having to pay child support to a parent that only had the child for 10%. Because the guideline calculator doesn't look and say, this is a man, this is a woman. It just looks at the parents, and it looks at several things like your tax status, your deductions, mandatory things that are coming out of your check, to try to figure out what the guideline amount should be for your children. And child support is for your children. So that is why it's important that, we put the correct numbers in so that your kids get what they're entitled to. Right. Child support, I can't say it enough, it's for the children. It's not for the custodial parent or the parent to benefit off of you. Right. Another thing is spousal support. A lot of people think you have to be married for 10 years to get spousal support. That is not true. And I love it when people are like, oh, I was married for 9 years, so I wouldn't have to pay the spousal support. It's not necessarily true. The goal of spousal support is to help the party that needs help become a little more self-supporting. So you could be married for a year and end up having to pay some spousal support to your former significant other because they need a little help to get back on their feet.
Right.
And child support, I hear this a lot. My significant other will not allow me to see my kids, so I'm not paying child support and the court can't force me. There is case law that does say that. However, it is really, really important if you have a child support order that you go to court before you stop paying child support, because a lot of people get themselves in a hole that leads to greater financial problems because they make decisions and then these decisions affect them financially because they didn't make fully informed decisions. So I think those are some of the greatest myths that I see regarding family law. So I am welcome. I'm here to answer questions.
Make sure we have the contact information.
Oh, awesome. Yes. Let me give you my contact information. I am at the wonderful firm of Chung and Ignacio LLP in Rancho Cucamonga. I do family law. We do a lot of other things. Our website is there on the bottom, www.ci-attorneys.com. I am also the president of the Richard T. Fields Bar Association, which is the bar association in the Inland Empire that seeks out the interest of African-American attorneys and African-Americans in the Inland Empire. And you can go onto our website, www.rtfbarassociation.com. We are working on a lawyer referral service. So we'd love for you to come on. You can join our organization. You don't have to be an attorney to join us, to just kind of see what we've got going on. And we also want to help be a resource for people that may need help in lots of the areas of law.
Right.
Yes.
Fantastic. So while I'm talking to you, I'm negotiating with Paulette, trying to get her to get on.
Come on, Sissy, come on.
We have a little extra time. I told her to text me, and I'll send her the link, and she can come in because I'm interested in ILCS anyway. I've been paying attention to it and trying to get into doing that. Now, over the years, Kamala, have you always done family law?
No, I actually have just taken my practice down to doing family law only. I have in the past done bankruptcy. I did some small criminal work when I first started. I also, back in the day, used to do landlord-tenant issues. So it's interesting to see the developments in the landlord-tenant law because it has changed a lot in the last 10 to 15 years. But for the most part, bankruptcy and family law was my bread and butter. And about a year ago, I made myself exclusively family law.
Gotcha. And so talk a little bit about the notion in a lot of these areas. Evictions is one, criminal is one. There are a lot of emotions that come into you representing clients, and you have to manage those emotions and frankly, be non-emotional, be passionate, right? About being a help and getting from point A to point B. But talk about how emotions can affect the person's ability to get the redress that they're looking for or to defend themselves properly in family court.
I'm just going to use an example of what I saw in court yesterday. There was a young man there who was completely frustrated, and rightfully so. His children's mother had taken the children. He had no idea where they were. And he came to the court to get assistance to find her. And because the court didn't help him, he got extremely frustrated and started getting into a back and forth with the judge. And so it is very important that sometimes you just sit and you listen, because the judge was telling him, I can't help you. Right. If you possibly went to this location, or if you possibly went to get help from an attorney, this could be resolved. It actually was an issue that most attorneys that have been out of law school for 2 minutes could have helped him with. But he was so frustrated, he didn't hear what was being said, and he ended up walking out of the courtroom without any help. So it's very important. I know, especially in family law, we're dealing with people's lives. We're dealing with their kids, the property that they've worked so hard for. And so it's hard to not be emotional about it. But it's important that even though you're going to feel some kind of way, that you still listen with both ears and use the one mouth. It's really important to listen to what's going on, because the one thing I know people don't believe this, but we have a lot of judicial officers in San Bernardino County and in Riverside County that are compassionate. And if you take the time to listen, they
Yes.
will help you. They will really give you clues as to what you can do, especially in situations like that.
You know, I make a distinction a lot between what's morally right and what's legally right.
Yes.
And so often some of us go to an attorney because something just does not sit right with them. This is not right that this is happening to me. And they are making a moral argument that is correct. It's a separate thing entirely, though, whether or not there is a legal redress for the issue that you're having. And so, you know, when you're emotional, you have a right to be emotional. Come in, let us know that you're in trouble, you're in a situation, and this doesn't sit right with you. But we're still going to take you through the legal aspects of things so that we can do the best we can to get at the result within the parameters of the system that we have. And sometimes it is difficult because, you know, clients have an idea of how things ought to go.
Mm-hmm.
And you got an attorney. Listen, you know, Kamala is going to be a person I've sent people to Kamala. She's going to give it to you how she sees it. She's got relationships with the judges, which I think is enormous, by the way. All of the people that you'll see today are people that deal with judges in the area, which is enormous. A lot of times when I go in court, hi, you know, Mr. Richardson, how have you been? You know, that kind of thing. I think that's really important that you get the benefit of the doubt by the judges and by the judicial officers. But it's really important to help us help you. So in other words, don't make it any harder because you're hot. Okay, particularly with these very emotional issues. When I did personal injury, and what I do is kind of next door to it because it can be a wrongful death arising out of a civil rights issue or that kind of thing. You have righteous indignation. Absolutely. Your feelings are hurt. Your life is changed, perhaps in a way where it'll never be the same again. You were on the job, you loved the job, and it went south on you, or you went through hell on the job for 10, 15 years, and then they ended up moving on you. There are some emotional issues that are tied to it, but it's also important to have the legal issues related to those things. And I'll say quickly for what I do, and Kamala, tell me how you guys deal with this, because for me, or what helps you, in other words, what you want a client to bring to you, because I tell a client right away on the employment side, if you want me to help you in an employment case, and it has to do with something that's been going on at the job, I need you to write out a chronology, because it does a couple things. First of all, it gives me a jumping off point, and a kind of chronology in chronological order. In other words, I got hired this certain date. This is when things start happening. Here were specific conversations as evidenced by Exhibit 2, you know, the email from Jim to Joe on October 21st or whatever else, because my complaint is going to get that specific. Also, when I take you through the exercise, you will almost always, particularly if your claims have credence, you will almost always have actually taken some things and compartmentalized them. And some things are going to come up because you wrote them and you're like, oh my God, I forgot about this too. And that might be the thing that you compartmentalize, might be the thing that makes the case go on my end. And so information is power. I want you to get me as much information as you possibly can so that I know I'm buying what you say, so then I can turn around and sell it. So what do you ask your family law people to get you from an information or documentation standpoint walking in the door? Anything?
Well, you actually, there were a couple of tangents that I want to address as well. Procedure is so important in family law. So it's very important. You talked about the parameters of what we're able to do. People have to understand that family law has a lot of different laws with a lot of different nuances. So it matters how you do it. So I need my clients and other people to understand, sometimes you're absolutely right. What you're asking for is absolutely right, but you have to follow the procedure, because if our judges aren't following procedure and just doing whatever they want, it can lead to the destruction of our system, as you can see what's happening in the political realm. So it's really important that people understand we have to follow a procedure. But when it comes to being prepared for court, one of the most important things is transparency between the client and the attorney.
Yes, tell
One
us
of the
all of
worst
it.
things, yes. If you don't tell me something and I find out about it in front of the judge or at time of trial, it
Now you
can
make me
totally
look
change
bad.
your case. And it's something that you think is insignificant can
Yes.
totally change a case. So it's important that when you come down for your initial consultation, or even if you're doing this on your own and you're giving the judge information, it's better to give too much than not enough,
Yeah,
because
that's right.
transparency is really, really important.
Better to have and
So
not need than need and not have. And
exactly.
so,
Exactly. And practically, when you're dealing, especially with dissolution, get me your tax returns. Get me
huge.
your paycheck stubs. If
Yeah.
you have your significant others access, get me their information, because there are some people that will start hiding things. And it
Yes.
makes it a lot more expensive and a lot more hard for us to get through the process when we have to discover things. Be real about what's going on with your children.
Yes.
Know what's going on with them in their extracurricular life. Know what's going on with them in their social life, because those things matter. And those are things that we are considering. And I know a lot of people, they think we're separated. I can go get in a new relationship. This is my rule. This is not the law, but keep your new significant others out of your old business, because it makes it really, really hard when somebody that was not in the relationship has control over what you're doing.
Yes.
And it makes it really hard for me, because now you're trying to please your new significant other rather than thinking about the situation that you're trying to come out of. So this is just my rule. I know other attorneys are different, but I just don't like new significant others having a significant say in how the case is moving forward.
That's huge. That's huge. Well, Kamala, we thank you. Now, we got all your information, didn't we?
We got all of our information, and yes, I am a graduate of Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia, the place above the wonderful Stacey Abrams and so many others.
That's right. That's right. They're doing their thing. So, Kamala, I appreciate you coming on and breaking it down on the family law side. You please tell every family member I said hello, and don't you be late to church tomorrow, because you're going to be in a problem if you are.
I definitely want, and thanks again for having me on here. You know, I've known about COPE for years, so thank you to Pastor Casey and to your firm for doing this. This is fantastic.
Yeah, you got it. All right, fam. I'll talk to you soon. Be good.
All right. Bye-bye.
Fantastic, like NBA action. Listen, this information is huge, guys. Okay. So make sure you let folks know we still got 3 more speakers, 3 more areas of incredible information. And so next up, hey, listen, this is something that a lot of times we don't want to talk about in our community, and that's mental health and behavioral health. You know, it's kind of funny. We have these discussions sometimes. I've had them, like family discussions, where you say somebody's crazy because they went and got help. Now, they're already crazy. All right. Everybody know they're crazy. Okay. But until they get help, they don't go get talked about. So one of the things that has to happen is that we have to demystify mental health, behavioral health, and being okay with needing help and seeking help. That's why I have Jonathan Buffon here. Jonathan is incredible. Listen, we did a 10-minute run through the other day. And the things that he was breaking down, the things I had not known about, information and resources that are available here in these counties. Now, every county is going to have some information of their own and agencies of their own. Jonathan is from San Bernardino County Department of Behavioral Health, and he has sent me a litany of resources, follow-up resources. If my production team looks in the email that I sent yesterday, we can put some of that stuff up in the comments as he's speaking, you know, and that type of thing. But Jonathan is at the San Bernardino County Department of Behavioral Health and is connected with the Office of Cultural Competence and Ethnic Services, because there's a recognition that certain specific communities have unique health and mental health and behavioral health concerns. And his whole thing as a consultant is to engage with the community of San Bernardino on increasing behavior health practices. So it's okay, guys, to need help. Okay. And if you need help and you don't get help, that doesn't mean you don't need help. Okay. So it's really important for us to connect with those community resources. As taxpayers, we pay for it. It's here, and there's plenty of it. Jonathan has a wealth of information. He's very passionate about these issues and has done this work for a long time with a lot of great people around us. So I'm glad to have Jonathan in with us today. Jonathan, good afternoon now, I guess now, right?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. How are you, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. Joe, thanks for having me. Thank you.
Man, I'm thrilled to have you because this is one of the areas where we get to really dispel some myths and take this down for people and break it down where they understand not only may you need help, but you can actually get help. And here's where you do it, and you can do it privately, and it doesn't have to be everybody's business, but it is the business of the people that care about you. And so not only can this arm the people themselves, but people that care about folks that are able to identify issues related to them. So just go on in wherever you want to go, Jonathan, because you are the expert on this, and we are really thrilled that you're here to help us with some information.
Perfect. We'll touch on a couple of different topics. One is I'll tell you a little bit about what we do with cultural comp and why it's so important that we kind of mix cultural competency in behavioral health, mental health, and substance abuse services.
Excellent.
I want to talk a little bit about COVID and just dealing with COVID from a mental health, behavioral health perspective. I also want to touch on one thing that's rising is suicide and self-harm. So I'm going to give some tips on what to look for and just a little bit more overview on that. And then I'll finally end it off with a couple of resources. So if that's okay, I'll get started.
Fantastic.
Number one, thanks for all of the comprehensive information that you've had so far. I've learned so much from the previous speaker. You guys had Linda Jackson, who is one of my favorite people. Great venue. So let's talk about behavioral health. And as I start this, sometimes when we start talking about mental health, people get a little bit uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Some of that comes from our traditions and history as people, okay? Right. Some of us, and I was talking yesterday, is a lot of us have had family members, an Uncle Joe, an Aunt Pam, who we don't always talk about, but we know they've struggled with some type of mental health illness, okay?
Right.
Oftentimes they're going to be in the basement or the attic, and they live with us, but they don't come out when family functions come through. Oftentimes we just kind of slide them some food. We know that they're there, but we don't talk about them. In fact, some folks, if you're not part of the family, you wouldn't even know that they existed. Right. So many of us have this, whether you're in the African American community, Latino community, Native American community. We look at behavioral health, mental health through the prism of our culture, our families, and our communities, and oftentimes what we see on TV. So when we start talking about mental health, most people are very comfortable talking about, my mother had just got diagnosed with breast cancer. I need you to pray for her. Or can you stop by and check in on, my brother, he just got his arm broken. But then when it comes to schizophrenia, when it comes to severe depression, we don't always ask the church to pray for us. Oftentimes we don't even want people to know.
Yes.
Sometimes some of us think that if you're around someone that has mental health, it's contagious. That is simply just not true.
Right.
And when we talk about mental health, we all have mental issues all the time.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes I was driving the other day, someone cut me off, and I was at a state of anxiety where I could have done something that I don't normally do. That's a mental health issue. The situation required me to do something, and I changed, and my emotions got the best of me. I was somebody different. That doesn't necessarily mean that I need medication or I have a diagnosis. I just have mental health issues. Some of us do need medication, and so we got to recognize that. So let's talk about what we do in the Office of Cultural Comp. We look at behavioral health from a perspective that every unique culture has a way of framing this issue. Some of us have stigma issues where we use the words like, well, Joe, you said crazy, Now, not that there's anything wrong with it, because I grew up with that. I try not to say it anymore because it's kind of stigmatizing,
Yes,
you know.
sir.
But we know what you mean by when you say, you know what, that guy's acting crazy. Somebody need to check in on him. We try and use language to understand, which is real interesting because in some of our cultural groups, when you look at Native American or Pacific Islander language, they don't have terms for schizophrenia. They don't have terms for these things. They have different terms, and we got to get them comfortable with just expressing that generationally, as well as to other people and to the medical field. But everyone is different. So we have 13 subcommittees that we meet once a month.
Amazing.
13. Yeah, I'm going to list a couple. And like Joe was saying, any of the resources I talk about, I can easily get it to you. But one of them is our African American subcommittee. We know that this year has been very challenging. If you're a Black person, you've been watching TV and you're watching some of the issues that have occurred with George Floyd, your issues with COVID, your issues with the marching and different things, you have what we call, you feel some kind of way. Okay.
Yes,
you may not even know. Yeah. You may not know how to express that feeling. All right. One of the things we do is we try and break down, okay, what is exactly our people going to need? In our county, we have been discussing, and Cope has been leading this charge, that racism is a crisis, a public health crisis.
Sure.
Now, we've actually kind of curtailed and dovetailed on that, and we'll say that it also connects with your mental health. Yes. Racism connects with your mental health. And so we've had speakers that talk about ways that we can deal with it, ways that we can do advocate for ourselves in a productive, healthy way, but at the same time, not get stressed out to the point where you just want to go off on people, which happens a lot. Mm-hmm. We also talk about if you're a parent, any parent that has their child, I'm a parent and I have a kindergarten, they're in this virtual world. That can be stressful more on the parent than on the child, in that I'm literally spending a lot of my time trying to figure out how to get on this thing and making sure that my son is learning. And it's taking a lot of energy and a lot of emotional support to make sure I get this. And parents definitely need support. So we had some speakers on that. And so we'll go through the gamut. So let me tell you about some other ones. We have our Asian Pacific Islander Awareness Subcommittee. Wow. We just had it yesterday. It's real interesting when certain people would call the coronavirus the China virus. What that does for a community that may have nothing to do with this virus and are targeted. So a young lady was talking about how she was being bullied at school because they kept calling her, making fun of her because of the coronavirus, and she just happened to be from the China area. And these things matter. So we create opportunities and spaces to express and deal with ways on how we can effectively deal with being healthy. So we got Latino, LGBTQ, Native American, older adults, individuals with disabilities, individuals that are in transitional age youth. That means from 16 to 25, which is that interesting age where you start to experience different things, become independent. But we do know that a lot of times, a lot of behavioral health issues occur during those times. So we do that. And every single one of our subcommittees are different because they're community driven. They're free for the public to attend. We meet once a month for about an hour and a half. Oftentimes we'll have a speaker that can talk to that specific community. But this is a place where if you feel a little bit isolated, if you feel lonely and you're part of any one of these 13, or if you're not, let's just say, hey, I want to learn more about how individuals, how women's are dealing with just their own mental health. And you're a man, you can join any of our subcommittees, and those are happening all the time, virtual world. So that's a little bit about our subcommittees. Do you have any questions on that, Joe?
No, that's really good. What's amazing is that you've got 13 of them. You know, you actually have a way to connect, and that's a huge demystifying step. The idea that we recognize that different communities may deal with this different ways, may approach it or arrive at it different ways, and therefore we need to be community specific in addressing it. It's an incredible way to meet people where they are, and I got to tell you, it makes all kinds of sense. But I didn't know y'all had 13 committees.
Yeah, most people don't. But you know what's also interesting is that many of the same issues manifest and look very similar. They're just dealt with in different communities.
Right.
So, for our Native American subcommittee, we talk a lot about historical trauma, stuff that happened generations ago that connects directly with those folks that are African American as well as those who are Latino. Because if you've been here in the United States, you have had trauma dealing with just society, which has been passed down to you, and you may not know why you feel upset, or you may know exactly why. But how do you deal with that now? How do you begin to heal? That takes a step and a process. And so we learn a lot from each other's communities. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that are going about how we can deal with the COVID crisis. There is a level of anxiety for individuals that are isolated that they haven't had, and oftentimes can't necessarily communicate what that is because they're so used to being with people, family, and friends, and using that as a way to kind of let off and just be comfortable. And now, some of us, we may not actually see a person, a day, 2 days, maybe even a week, depending on what your situation is. So the first thing you got to do is understand that knowledge is power. And when I say knowledge is power, is not just knowledge of this virus, because you can study up on this virus all day. Study up on your own behavioral health and health needs. If you're an individual that's compromised in any way physically, start to know that, if you have some underlying health issues, this is what affects the virus so much is individuals that have some underlying issues. So you want to know what those things are. And you want to make sure that you are very clear on how individuals can protect themselves that have these types of things. Does the native groups use indigenous systems of healing? That is a good question. Let me go back to that because I want to answer that before we go further into the COVID stuff.
Excellent.
We do. We actually have a group that we work with, the Riverside Indian group, that it focuses on, they have their own clinic. So they work with the native population exclusively, but they also lead our subcommittee. And one of the things that they have been using is medicine wheels, different types of healing groups, healing circles. I've learned a lot of new practices from this subcommittee. But what their goal is to educate folks on what the Native American community needs are, and also different ways that they've used to be able to kind of get through all of the traumatic experiences they have. So that hope that answers that question. All right. Excellent. So the next thing on COVID is just put things in perspectives. Okay. The numbers are saying that more than 80% of the folks that get coronavirus that are positive is still a mild case. Okay. So we're talking about roughly 20% that are severe to the point where they do need to go to the hospitals and they need to have some more intensive care. So let's keep that, a lot of folks have gotten to a panic mode, which we don't want to. We want to make sure that we know what's going on, but we don't want to be panicky about this. The next thing is get your emotional support system together. Have individuals that you can call that are on speed dial in your phone, know their information, that if you are having problems, anxiety or depression, you can call them to at least talk, okay? What happens is when we get isolated, we tend to isolate ourselves and we try and break all communication from other people. We need to check in with each other. Yes. We need to just ask, how you doing? What's been going on? How are you feeling? Those types of just basic things help people get through the day. So that's really key.
Huge. And
just as we deal with the coronavirus, is not to get so wrapped up into the news cycle, because oftentimes, I'll elaborate on that. Oftentimes, we can get wrapped up into watching just the negative aspects of what's going on in our local community, national community, and international community, and that doesn't put us in a state where we're healthy. So we want to make sure that we kind of block off some time where you're getting the information that you need, but then you want to go out there and take a walk. Make sure that you listen to music. Do the things that make you that inspire you and give you joy. Do the things that give you a level of relaxation. These things are so strong and preventative that they can help you deal even if you get some type of virus and make sure your immune system is as strong as possible. All right. Now, the next thing I wanted to touch upon is that we have had a rise in something that we don't talk a lot about, which is self-care, or which is self-injury, and actually suicide. And although we know it exists, particularly in our minority communities, we don't talk about it that much. So I want to be real clear that I want everyone to know that it's not just young people that self-harm, okay?
Sure.
Everybody can be a person that self-harms. Self-harm is more than just cutting or burning. Self-harm is more than just what we can't see. Oftentimes, self-harm can be excessive exercise, pinching oneself, increased drinking, overdose with non-fatal intention, sabotaging relationships, staying with people that treat you terribly, pulling your head, mixing your medications with alcohol. Those are all forms of self-injury. Wow. And so we got to realize that those could be signs that we see in our friends, we can see in our community members, our children, and we need to ask some questions. Self-harm is just not a failed suicide attempt. Oftentimes the intention is just in self-harm, but not kill yourself. People that self-harm are more than just attention seekers. They are attention needers. A lot of them may not know how to communicate what they're feeling inside. So it's up to us to notice cues and things that are going on and ask them some question. Let's talk a little bit about suicide. This first thing that comes up is some people say, well, if I ask someone, even though I suspect that they may be feeling like hurting themselves, if I ask them if they're thinking about suicide, I'm putting that idea in their head. That is absolutely false. That has definitely been scientifically negated. The only way you're going to help someone is by simply asking the question, what's going on? Are you feeling like hurting yourself? Are you feeling like killing yourself? Are you feeling like hurting someone else? These questions could oftentimes unlock what people have been waiting for someone to ask them for months, maybe even years, so that they can actually talk about their feelings. So do not feel at all that you can't ask that question. Now, once you ask that question and you get a positive, if any type of positive response, you're going to want to connect them to a professional person. It is not on you to try and save this person. Right. We have many resources. Probably the easiest one is 211. Calling 211 and simply saying, I have a person, and you can tell them what your relationship is or not, that is thinking about either hurting or killing themselves. They can find a professional person who can get on the line with them. Two things you don't want to do. You don't want to leave this person alone, and you're going to want to make sure that this person does not have any type of tools or weapons that can potentially affect them or you. Now, if that's the case, I'm not going to tell you to call 211. I'm going to probably say you should call 911. Your job is not to necessarily put yourself in a harm of fire. You want to make sure that professional people can handle that. So to sum that up, I really want you guys to feel comfortable asking your family members and friends the questions of, how are you doing? And if you feel like this person is having some extreme situations, this could also be over social media. Let's say that you saw your nephew and you're just checking in on Instagram and you see a post that says, everything is just the worst. I've had the worst day. I'm going to go and do something. You may want to ask some questions. Okay. Hey, little Johnny, what's going on? Let me ask you, how are you feeling? And if the conversation moves to, he might be thinking about hurting themselves, ask the question, are you thinking about killing yourself? And then you can move on from there with the 211 or connect them to some 1-800 suicide numbers that are there. There's plenty of resources and we can get that for you. But I want you to be very clear also that when we talk about suicide, we're not talking about just people that are down in the pits or just had a tragic event. We've seen many individuals that we would consider to be celebrities, individuals that we consider to have a lot of money, status, family, have the things that all of us say, that makes people happy, also consider suicide as an option. So it doesn't matter how people are looking, you've got to still ask people questions in order for them to really give you an idea of what's going on. That also means that oftentimes we will see some hints that people are thinking about hurting themselves or killing themselves. Oftentimes they'll start giving away prized possessions. They may start saying things like, you know what, I wonder how the world will be if I wasn't here. These are all quick little symptoms, or these are quick little ideas that you should say, hey, I need to ask some follow-up questions. All right, so let's be very clear on that. I'm going to go back to just dealing with mental health.
Yeah, we got a couple more minutes, so give us what you can on that.
Okay, let's go back to that. I want individuals to understand what truly stigma is. Stigma is not oftentimes based in truth. Oftentimes, stigma is something that's repeated from somebody that you heard from another person that heard from another person. So one of the stigma is that people that have mental health issues and people that have diagnoses are dangerous. And the truth is, oftentimes, most people that have a diagnosis and mental health issues, they're more likely to be victims as opposed to individuals that are the ones that are actually going around hurting folks. But when we hear about someone who just shot up a mall or a school, the first question we ask is, do they have mental health? Were they crazy? What was going on? 90% of the cases are showing that, no, this is not true. Okay. Now, there are other factors and other mitigating things, but people that have mental health conditions, they're generally not violent. And those individuals that we should be actually looking forward to helping and supporting, because they could be potential victims. Where we see a lot of our mental health population, and I think some of the other speakers will agree, is in our jail and criminal systems. Sure. We see a lot of them in there. And that's just because we as a community didn't do what we needed to in order to get them the help needed. So we have a couple of different places you can get some help. One of them is called our community crisis response team. This specific unit will actually come to your house. Okay. And I have their numbers. We have 3 in our San Bernardino County that are available. But as long as there's not a violent aspect to what is going on, they can come and actually assess the individual that may be acting out. The individual might just start yelling or throwing things, or you're not really sure. You're not sure if this individual is even taking medication, and possibly they ran out of their medication. This is an opportunity to call our CCRT team to come out. They have professional individuals that can assess, and they can also potentially help them get the help that they need by transporting that individual to one of our clinics. Now, we do have clinics also. Now we have one in the high desert. We have some here in the Rialto, Fontana area, but these clinics are there for individuals that are experiencing crisis to also go and get some help that they need. And then we also have stabilization units that are last 2 years we've created for individuals just to kind of stabilize themselves, maybe get some medications, talk to someone, but there's not as high level of fear that they're having to go to an institution. So it says, who decides to call them out in an emergency? You can call them out in an emergency. You as an individual community person, you as a family member, if you notice that this person is at a crisis of any state, then you have the ability to make that call. Now, as far as if this person needs to get some type of hold, that's up to our law enforcement and individuals that are qualified to do that. But that resource is available to you. And then
there were so many resources that you gave us. I'm going to ask the production team to just put them back up again, just so we have them. But what's a good starting place in terms of a county line that people can talk to, where they could call, or website where they could probably get some direction as to some of the other things that you've posted as well? I mean, we're going to try to post them all here, but where's a good starting point for folks?
I'll give you 3. The first one is that 211 number. That can give you access to all of your types of human services that you're going to need, okay? The second one is there is a group called NAMI, okay? National Alliance for Mental Illness. They have a website. You can get some really phenomenal information just by checking out that website. And then we, of course, have our County Department of Behavioral Health website, which we'll post. And then from there, you can just click on links to figure out if it's a substance abuse issue, if it's an issue where you have a family member that just got taken to jail, but that you know that this person needs medication. We have all of that for you as well. So we have that. Those are the three that I would touch on right now. 211, NAMI, and then our County Department of Behavioral Health numbers. And we also have so many programs that we have navigators in our department that can help you do that. So just by sending a quick email or a phone number to me, I can connect you to a navigator who can kind of give you some ideas on where you can go next, because your questions might be very complex.
Fantastic. Jonathan, man, we really appreciate your help and you helping us break this down and demystify that. Again, Jonathan is very passionate about what he does, as are many of the people over at County Behavioral Health, and he's going to help you really connect the dots. So don't be afraid to take a step forward, identify some issues that maybe you're having or somebody that you care may be having, and connect the dots and get some information so that we can move forward. All right. Jonathan,
Absolutely.
I appreciate you, man, coming on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And please don't be afraid to give me a call.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Wow, man, I'm telling you, information is power. All right. We've got information and information and information. And so make sure that you're letting folks know. We still got 2 more speakers. And remember, all of this is going to be available later on. This is going to be an on-demand program where people can go get it and get the information anytime they need it. And some of it's so good, it's good to go back and look at it again, right? So make sure you let folks know. So next up, there is a lot of times I get asked a legal question, and they are individuals that may not need help by someone like me, may not need an attorney, but they may need a bit of guidance. Other people are independent, very independent, so much so that they'll file their own lawsuits. I just saw one the other day of an employee who filed their own lawsuit against an employer, and that's never good. Never good. That can be difficult, put it that way. And so how do you find this middle ground in terms of identifying what my problem is and figuring out who I need to help me do whatever it is that I need to do? That's where Pro Se Legal comes in. Kimberly Lewis is with us today, and I'm going to have her talk a little bit about just her own background with helping other communities, disadvantaged communities, and a passion for providing those types of services and how it came to bear with Pro Se Legal Services. This is the answer, folks, for people that call me and say, should I do prepaid legal? Should I do legal Zoom? Or whatever else. And what I tell people about that is they provide a service, and they provide a service that's valuable. But what you really want is to provide a relationship. Because if you can provide a relationship, now you've got somebody that you trust that's letting you know whether or not you need to call an attorney or whether or not you can do thing X or Y or Z. So for instance, you call LegalZoom or whatever company, I'm not trying to bust anybody out or anything, and you know that you want an LLC. You've heard about LLCs because they're easy to sign up. They're easy to put together. You've heard about that. However, has your tax person let you know that an LLC is the best thing for you from a tax standpoint? Maybe a corporation is the best thing for you. So how do you put all that together? And I think that this service that Kimberly is going to be helping to provide as a lead paralegal at Pro Se is going to really help people connect the dots. Kimberly, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
Good. My mind is in Hawaii, so I would say good morning. But here in California, it's 12:45. So let us know how what it is that you've done and what you're passionate about has connected you to Pro Se Legal, and then we're going to talk about what they offer.
Community outreach has always been a strong point for me. I love helping individuals. I love connecting individuals with the necessary resources that they need. So I'm sitting here in the back of the studio where you are, and I have about 2 pages of notes from all the other presenters. It was such an amazing information. And we at Pro Se Legal, we're kind of on the ground with the general public that are going to be coming in and needing assistance in document preparation, but we also want to be a resource. So again, I have 2 pages of notes just from all of your presenters. Pro Se Legal, we are a new legal document preparation business. We are bonded and registered paralegals or legal document assistants in Riverside and San Bernardino counties. What that means is that we have the education and the experience as a paralegal. We're just not working under an attorney anymore. So that's why we're classified as legal document assistants. In the areas that we assist people is going to be family law, probate, wills and trusts, powers of attorney, deed property transfers, deeds, immigration, and forming a business. So I really appreciate your intro into Pro Se Legal. We also offer flat rate services. So again, if you call us and you are self-represented, you have a stack of papers, and let me give you an example, for instance, a probate. Mom passes away, your mom's only child. You think simple enough, I should inherit the property in whatever bank account she has. So you go into the court tells you need to open a probate, and they hand you a stack of paper yay big. Well, that's a little overwhelming, That's where we come in. You come into our office, we will assist you in filling out that paperwork and actually filing that paperwork on your behalf. Again, you're a young entrepreneur. You have a goal and a desire to start a new business. You know what you need to do, but just not quite sure how to do that, how to file those paperwork with the Secretary of State, or actually what the forms entail. So we're here to go ahead and to help you do that as well. One thing that a lot of people ask us is what makes us different than an online service, for instance. Well, number one, we're local, we're in your neighborhood. You can actually check our backgrounds to make sure that we are who we say that we are. A lot of times when you go on the online services, you really don't know who's working on your paperwork, and you can't really call them to go ahead and to ask them questions. Because we have a local office in Ontario, and soon we'll be having offices in Calamasa, Fontana, and Eastvale. We truly are your neighborhood legal document preparers. Why do I say that? Driving down the street on your way to the grocery store, you see all of our signage and think, oh yeah, I need to go in there and get that power of attorney that I've been putting off forever and a day. Or, oh yeah, I did get filed, served with divorce papers, and I don't know how to fill these back out. Again, that's what makes us local.
So talk about the difference between being in a contested action versus non-contested, because one of the problems that I end up having when I'm telling people why either their case isn't what it needs to be or why it may have been, but I can't help them, is because they have taken on an adversarial situation without the knowledge of taking it on. So let us know the box that Pro Se Legal fills, just the notion that this is something where you need some help, but you don't have it contested on the other side.
So in other words, family law, for instance, and I really appreciate all the information that the family law attorney gave. It was invaluable information. So for instance, you go ahead and you say, well, my significant other and I are getting ready to file for divorce. Everything seems to be on the up and up. We agree in every aspect. So you go and you start the paperwork, and then all of a sudden it changes. So then you come into our office. Well, that's where we don't deal in contested situations. So that's where we would actually go ahead and refer you to one of our referral sources. And that's another thing that Pro Se wants to go ahead and really have an impact in is creating those community partnerships that will better serve our clients within the community. So again, the individual comes in, the simple divorce turned into a now ugly divorce. We want to be able to refer you to an attorney who is going to go ahead and walk you through that whole process very efficiently.
And I think we can safely say that some of the people that we might be referring to are some of the people that we saw today.
Oh, absolutely. That's another reason why I was taking 2 pages worth of notes. I really appreciate Jonathan, talking about the stresses. Somebody comes into our office, maybe they're a victim of domestic violence, and they need to go ahead and file the paperwork. They know what they need to do. They just are so stressed out that they can't file the paperwork or fill it out. So they come into our office, we fill it out. But in that conversation, whereas we are creating a relationship, then we can refer them out to another source that's going to go ahead and help them to deal with some of those other issues that they may have. Again, an online service is not going to give you that personable touch. They're not going to give you the relationship aspect of what your legal issue is.
Are there any things that you've seen, and you've been a paralegal for some time, are there any things that you're seeing a little bit more of that you would connect to COVID and or the surrounding economic fallout?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you had said that. COVID's really had an impact on all of us. I think that's one commonality that we all have. You know, COVID has affected us all, however way it has. But kind of a funny story, you know, you're standing in line to get into the grocery store, and then you're standing in line to get out of the grocery store, and you start to engage in conversations with people. I have noticed people are actually more apt to start discussing their frustration. So for instance, I had a lady standing at Vaughn's, and her and I struck up a conversation, and this was her quote free time to get out of the house to go deal with her mother's stuff and her children's stuff and whatnot. The problem that she had was because she did not have a power of attorney, she wasn't able to go to the bank and deal with her mother's issues. So power of attorneys are definitely on an uprise, especially if they have a loved one who's living in senior living, and those senior livings have in fact been shut down, or they are quarantined or sheltering in place. The children just don't have the appropriate medical and financial documents to go ahead and take care of mom and dad's issues. Domestic violence is on an uptick. As the family law attorney said, divorces are on it, are on an uptick. But it's just those simple documents to help people get from point A to point B is where we come into play.
Have you seen anything lately? There was a comment about saying so many actions are time sensitive. This office could be a big help. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind in terms of time sensitivity, things that people really need to jump on?
Getting their affairs in order, a lot, estate planning is key. A lot of people think, well, I can't afford to hire a fancy attorney, or I don't have anything. All I have is a simple house and a small bank account. What do I need to have a living trust for? I don't have a large net worth or large estate. That is not true. Anybody who owns a home in California and they pass away and it's not put into a living trust, it will be probated. That is a fact. And the fact is that the probate courts take a very long time. And it's not always how the individual intended it to go. I mean, you and I are brother and sister. Maybe you're mom and dad's favorite. I was not. They pass away. Maybe mom and dad wanted to leave everything to you, but they didn't do proper planning. Now mom and dad pass away. Well, guess what? We go to court and now it's divided 50-50. So there's a lot of reasons to go ahead and to get your affairs in order at this time.
That's exactly what I would have said. And I'll shout out real quickly to, I know some very good probate lawyers in Redlands. Chris Shumate is one. Chris Shumate is one. Bill Nasser in Redlands is another one. And quickly, I do have a lot of people call me about wills, asking about wills and saying, hey, the will says this, or there was no will. Okay. Right. And so a will and a trust, a lot of people know to do a will, whether they do it or not, but they don't necessarily know to do a trust. And
correct.
So the will says, this is what's supposed to happen. I want right. Jim to have X or Y or Z. The trust is what keeps that out of probate. Correct. So the court is not the one saying that Chris is supposed to get the house, because correct. If it goes to probate, it's kind of the kiss of death, because it takes time and money. Even if there is a will by itself does not check the box if you don't have a trust, because the trust is what keeps it actually out of probate, which saves you expenses, which saves you time. And I've seen it happen a million times. And of course, some of the most disruptive events are deaths, particularly when instructions are either not clear or the instructions don't have the mechanisms to have them carried out.
Correct. Absolutely. And that's another reason why we at Pro Se want to have a close relationship with probate and estate planning attorneys as well. There are some situations where maybe it's not a simple probate. Now, all of a sudden, maybe it's become very contentious. And so that's where we want to have the relationship to go ahead and to refer those people out to the appropriate attorneys. But we also want the attorney to go ahead and feel comfortable referring to us as well, knowing, you know what, Pro Se Legal can actually handle this, for you. Another thing that's going to be changing, especially now with the new administration, is immigration. There for a while, immigration, it was huge. And then of course it went ahead and it took a lull, and now it's going to go back to how it is. Well, we want to make sure that those people that are filing those petitions for family-based petitions, that they're actually filling out the application correctly, and that they're getting good sound, I can't say advice, but good sound direction on the supporting documents that also need to be filed with that application as well.
Right. That's huge. Talk to me a little bit, because you mentioned this before when we were talking a couple days ago about the idea that when someone comes to Pro Se Legal, there is a relationship actually established with the paralegal. Absolutely. And it's consistent and sustained.
Absolutely. And relationship is key. People have to be very comfortable with you in order to divulge to you, this is the need. These are the papers that I need. I'm just not quite sure. Or even go a step further. This is kind of what's going on in my home. There we can go ahead and have those resources available for them. There's definitely a relationship aspect. I had an elderly man give me a call a while back, and he had a question, and I had told him he had received some documents in the mail, and I said, well, why don't you bring the documents into our office and we'll go ahead and review them for you. And he said, no, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read you the letters that I had received. And God bless him. We were on the phone for quite some time, but he read that whole entire letter. But you know what? That's what relationship's all about. And he, was very thankful that we took the time to listen to him. In fact, then he ended up coming in, and it was a simple notary was all that he needed. But again, that relationship is going to go beyond the walls of our office. And that's definitely what we want. We want to have an impact in the community. We want to be involved in the churches. We want to make sure that the churches also understand that there is quality legal service out there that's non-lawyer, and that we can assist in. And when we cannot, then we will go ahead and refer to our community partners that we have had a relationship with.
Fantastic. I mean, this is going to be really important on the immigration side. One of the folks that I refer to quite a bit is Gene Hayes, who's a dear friend. And I could see some opportunities for us to get together with some folks that are in the area that are doing some things when things are contested and when there's that back and forth and it's super complicated. You also talked a little bit about the vision that we have. We feel like in short order, we'll probably have a few offices open here for Pro Se Legal.
Oh, absolutely. So our first office is in Ontario. We are slated to be open February 1st. We are taking clients right now. So I don't want anybody to think who's listening to this that if they have a need, by all means, just go ahead and give us a call. We will definitely service you. Our next offices to be open will be in Calamasa, Eastvale, and Fontana. From there, we would like to go ahead and hit the outer parts of Riverside and San Bernardino counties. Again, truly being that neighborhood legal document preparation office. I can't express to you how exciting this is for me on a personal notion. I've done extensive community outreach throughout the Inland Empire, throughout the state, and even internationally. And the number one issue a lot of people have is, I know what I want. I'm not just quite sure how to get to from point A to point B, or I have a ton of paperwork. I don't understand where to even write my name on these documents.
Sure.
So, that's where we want to be truly a service to the community.
Fantastic. Well, Kimberly, thank you so much. We put up the LinkedIn. The website will be up very soon as well. Dana said Hemet needs you for sure. I think it's just a matter of time before Pro Se is next door to Hemet, if not in Hemet.
If I may, actually, we do go to Hemet. I just had a client out there the other day.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, we do have a mobile office, and because of COVID, not everybody is comfortable coming into the office, even though we are following protocol. But again, some people are shut-ins. I just did a estate plan for a family in Yucaipa, and she had a stroke and pretty much was immobile. So we were able to go ahead and to go into her home, do those documents for her, and have those forms notarized, and then filed the deeds on her behalf as well. So again, we completely did a full service for our client.
Fantastic. Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate it. Very excited to see the things that Pro Se is going to be doing. I would expect that we'll probably be doing some things together where we're talking about Pro Se, and we're in some of the, once we get in house with the churches, with the community centers and things like that, where we can let people know the information that's available and the resources that are available. Those of you that are in that middle ground, you don't want to do it by yourself. You need a little bit of hand holding, but it's not a contested issue where an attorney should be involved. No, we're not trying to get in the attorney lane. Pro Se is not trying to get in the attorney lane here. Pro Se is trying to help folks score a layup when they need some help, and they believe that there is a gap here to fill, and a community service that one can provide, which is going to be cost effective as well. And there's going to be an honesty that says, for this thing, you need an attorney, and here's who I'd call. And so that's something that you don't get with some of the other services, where you're either doing it yourself, or you may have some time with a designated person or whatever else, but you don't have the relationship that allows you to build and ask other questions that may be in the same universe, or get things done that may be in a similar universe. So that's really important. So thanks.
And then just a side note really quick, I mean, a simple notary can totally turn into, I'm coming in to get this notarized, and I'm also getting evicted from my home. Well, now I have two resources that I can go ahead and refer a client to. So again, a simple notary has now turned into a different conversation, which then has led the individual to get some help.
Right. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Kimberly. I appreciate you being with us.
Thank you so much.
All right. Talk to you soon. So, again, information. And information is power. We're penalized for what we don't know. And Kimberly talked about something that is very common to us attorneys. My brother-in-law, sister-in-law, Jose Janai, hey, how you doing? Shout you guys out. They're doctors. And I'm sure that people ask them about all areas of the body. But if I am a heart surgeon, I might know generally about some particular things, but not others. Okay. And so lawyers are the same. Often there was a question, can a person outside of San Bernardino County use the service? Yes, that's the short answer. Get in contact and assume that you can use the service, and let them tell you that you can't use the service, because my understanding is that you are going to be able to use the service, because among other things, there's going to be growth in that regard as well as we go along. So, but a big part of what attorneys do is identify and diagnose. In other words, here's the area of law that you're asking about, and here is who I would refer you to. I'm real busy doing the things that are in my lane. Okay. I've practiced for 20 years. I've gotten pretty specific about the stuff that I do. And so there's certain things that I don't know about. And so I look to connect dots that way. And so we're going to continue to do that in all areas, and Pro Se is going to be no different. So now it's time for the closer. It's great if you have family law issues and you can contact an attorney and get help in that regard. It's great you have a job and you need to figure out employment issues related to the job. Great if you have the resource to find from a mental health standpoint, and you can get in contact and get some help for you or somebody you care about. But none of it matters if you're not free. So we're closing with criminal law here. My dear friend Derek Smith, there's not a finer criminal defense attorney in this county, in this area. I've known Derek for almost 30 years now, and Derek has always felt criminal law in his bones. There are a lot of us, frankly, that went to law school, graduated 20, 25 years ago, and we're still trying to figure out what we want to do. Derek is the one that knew he wanted to be a criminal lawyer. He had to try Pepsi to know Coke is it. Now that's a joke for the older folks. A lot of kids don't know about that commercial. Pepsi, try Pepsi, Coke is it. They don't know any of that. So he did do prosecution side while he interned, while he was in law school, et cetera. But he knew he wanted to be in the criminal space. Born and raised in South Central Los Angeles, like myself, we had plenty in common. And so ever since he's been practicing, he's been a deputy public defender in San Bernardino County and is now a supervising deputy public defender, and started off doing very modest cases, all of which are important. So you've got misdemeanor DUIs and all of these other things. And then now you've got, you graduate to robbery, murder, and everything else. So Derek has seen it. He's in management. He's part of helping new attorneys, younger attorneys, serve people in the county. I want to dispel a couple things related to the San Bernardino County Public Defender. If Derek is any indication, the quality of work that comes out of the Public Defender's Office is high. A lot of folks think that because I didn't pay a $15,000 retainer to go to private attorney X or Y or Z, and there's some great ones out there, that you don't have adequate counsel. Well, Derek is very passionate about what he does and is awfully good at it. And there are a lot of everyone that he serves gets his best and gets the best representation that they can have. And so there's a couple things that I thought would be good for us to talk about. So let's bring Derek on in. Derek, I'm in.
Good afternoon. How are you? Am I sound
Good.
good?
How are you, sir? Oh, yeah, man. You sound just fine, man. You sound real.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Oh, man, it's great. We've done this before. And by the way, BTW IJS, we did a podcast together on the Joe Speak podcast. Derek was probably my second or my third guest because I think that the information that he provides and what he does is incredible. Not only a great personal story that, of course, I would connect with us being from the same place, but just things related to criminal law work. Just like all other kinds of work, a lot of other kinds of legal issues, there's often emotion tied to it. There's often ego tied to it. There is often personality tied to it. And, sometimes it can be a good thing and sometimes it can be a bad thing if you go to an attorney and the first thing they get is your personality. I have a great deal of respect for what Derek does because he has to deal with people's freedom. And not to say that what we do isn't significant, and sometimes on the civil side, and sometimes there are life-altering circumstances. But to me, and having dealt with through family members the criminal justice system early on, I just think the stakes are raised. So, Derek, you said that you would have something for us, have something special for us. So let us know, how you want to do it, and just go ahead and break it on down.
Absolutely. Watching, the news the past few days, I've been kind of going back and forth. How do I, kind of address this? What do we talk about? So having tools and resources in how to deal with interactions with law enforcement is crucial.
Yes, sir.
And so you shouldn't go into a contact with law enforcement and start thinking about it at the instant that you have that contact. So if you're here, now we start the process. We start thinking about how you interact with law enforcement once that contact happens. So me personally, I can tell you that I'm always having these conversations with myself. If I'm stopped in this instant, what do I do? What's my response? How do I act? So I am always preparing myself for interaction with law enforcement, whether I'm in my car driving, whether I'm walking down the street, whether it's a contact at my home. I'm thinking about what is my response going to be? And at the end of the day, what I want my response to be is a response that's going to return me back to my family safely. And so that's what, I kind of want to talk about. I want to, walk through some scenarios, walk through things where they're common. So, you may get stopped while you're driving down the street. If you're driving down the highway, driving down the street, you see law enforcement pull up behind you, hit you with the lights, pull over. So, in California, you have to have a license and valid registration in order to drive a vehicle. So when you're pulled over and you have that first interaction and Joe officer says, can I see your license and insurance? Well, If you were driving 90 down the freeway, you kind of know why you got stopped. So it's probably a pretty legitimate stop. So license and registration are required. So you should hand those things over.
So the answer to
Again,
that question shouldn't be, why are you stopping me?
right. Now, different scenario. Let's say that you are driving in your lane and you don't think that you've done, anything wrong. You're just driving down the road and you get stopped. And, the officer comes up and you're not sure why you're being stopped. Joe officer comes up, ma'am, sir, how are you doing? And at that instance, it's okay to say, I'm fine, officer. Can you tell me why you stopped me? Because, and the reason that I say that if you don't know and you're asking is because you should comply with any sort of lawful commands made by an officer. So if you don't know why you're being stopped and you just want to know, officer, I'm going to comply. I just want to understand why you stopped me, because anything that you ask me to do that's lawful, I am going to comply with. Because again, at the end of the day, we're trying to return safely home to our families. So what should you do? Check your ego, sit it outside on the curb, and deal with this as impassionately as you can. That's hard for me because I'm pretty passionate. I wear my passion on my shoulder. And so I have to put myself in that same space in dealing with dealing with these law enforcement officers. So checking my ego, if he says, well, you made a wide turn. I saw that. And I watch a lot of these YouTube videos and social media videos where the interactions where the people that say they're auditing, law enforcement. Some of them are cringeworthy, law enforcement side and on Joe Citizen side. One that I saw recently was a young man got pulled over. The officer told him that he pulled him over for a wide turn. And so he rolls up his window as the officer is approaching. The officer thought that was suspicious. Then he asked the guy to get out. What the gentleman did, which was pretty good, is that even though he didn't feel like he had to comply, like it was wrong that he was asking him to get out, he asked him why, tried to understand why he was asking him to get out of the car, but he complied. And I can say at the end of the day, all the things that were wrong that the officer did, the citizen did a lot of things right. And he returned safely home to his family. He got arrested that day, but ultimately the case turned out in his favor. He got arrested, but ultimately he returned home safely to his family and the case worked out right for him. And so what you want to do is you want to put yourself in a space that you are asking the right questions, not saying too much, and doing whatever you need to do so that you can return home safely to your family. That's the goal. That's my goal. And when I'm thinking about these scenarios that I play through my mind. So again, if you're approached and you're, at the car and it seems like the officer may be getting a little agitated because you're asking questions, let them know. I'm only asking you because I'm looking out for my safety. I don't, mean any harm to you, but I'm willing to comply. I just want to understand why you're asking me to do the things that you're doing. It's a respect type of situation. You give respect, you should get some back. You're not going to in every instance, but again, you should be the person that is doing the things that help you to return home. And if you're asking the right questions and getting the right information, when you come to me, if you are wrongfully arrested, I can take that information and I can use that information in court, because the highway, the parking lot, the sidewalk is not the place to litigate the right and wrong of that interaction.
Absolutely.
You got to come into court. You got to let me or my colleagues help you. That's the place that we deal with the unlawful activities that may happen. And you shouldn't be the one trying to decide whether it's unlawful or not. I'm going to give you a couple nuggets and things that you should process and think about. But do it in a sense where the goal is, I want to return home safely to my family. So if you wind up doing things like, for instance, if an officer asks you to step out of your vehicle and you don't think that you should, ask the officer why he wants you to step out of the vehicle. And if he does not give you a reason, say, you know what, officer, I don't believe that it's right for me to step out, but I'm going to comply with your request for me to step out. And while you're stepping out, let them know, I'm not giving you consent to search me. I'm not giving you consent to search my car just because I am complying with what you're asking me. I'm trying to return safely home to my family at the end of the day. And so you're probably going to be searched. Your vehicle's probably going to be searched as well. However, if that search was unlawful and you've made it clear that it's not consensual, then you have resource in me, you have a resource in my colleagues to take that before the court and say, these are the things that were done that were incorrect, and we'd like to have this case dismissed. So just nuggets, you're asking, just why. I'm going to comply, but help me to understand why what you're asking me to do, I need to do. So one of the things that I have worked out in my head is I have a phone, and I keep my phone close to me when I'm driving. I know that I am 3 thumb taps away from recording any interaction. That recording can be stopped by someone else, but it cannot be deleted because my phone is not unlocked, is in a locked state where I can get to my video. So if I'm stopped, I'm making those 3 thumb touches and I'm recording that interaction, because you don't want to have someone else try and share your truth. That video should share that truth, and it can. So if you have an opportunity, because here in San Bernardino County, the sheriff's department does not wear body cameras. So there is no taping of the interaction between Joe Citizen. Yes, it's not. Absolutely. There are some departments within San Bernardino County that do have body cameras, but the sheriff's department, the largest law enforcement in the county, does not have body cameras. And that's, it's unfortunate, one for officers, because at times, I've had clients that tell me, hey, I said X, Y, and Z, and I've seen the body cam and it was completely like the officer said. So it goes both ways. And, at the end of the day, you want your truth to be heard. And so that's what, we're talking about. We're talking about getting to the truth and sharing your truth. Another instance that, I want to talk about, because people are contacted walking down the street. And if a police officer walks up to you and says, can I talk to you? My immediate response is going to be, am I being detained? And am I free to leave? If they say that, I am being detained, okay. If I'm being detained, then I don't really have any conversation that I want to have with you, because you are at this point investigating some sort of criminal activity, or what you believe to be criminal activity. However, if the officer walked up to me and said, can I talk to you? Where is that In and Out? I see you holding a bag of In and Out. At that point, I'm like, oh man, In and Out is around the corner, 2 blocks over, so and so. And I'm walking on, I'm leaving. I'm giving that because it's just kind of a respect thing. You just ask me something non-legal or law enforcement related, just interacting in the community, give that brief nugget, and I'm on my way. However, if it's a criminal investigation, I'm not going to say anything that's going to hinder my freedom. So I am going to use the advice of Miranda, remain silent, because I know I have that right. And I'm not going to say anything that's going to be used against me in a court. So the reason I say the officer steps in front of you, because if you are boxed in or detained, it becomes a legal argument as to whether you are free to leave or go. Oftentimes, the court has sided with law enforcement in saying that a contact was consensual, that a person had the ability to just walk away. Now, in reality, if a law enforcement officer walks up to me and I'm sort of boxed into a corner, I don't feel like I can just brush past him and leave. I mean, you're kind of, in that instance, you're boxed in and you feel like you have to sort of stand there and defend why you are there. So again, you don't want to allow there to be any sort of confusion. That's why I say you ask the question, am I being detained? Am I free to leave? Clear that up, because if you don't clear that up, the court is very likely going to hold that was a consensual encounter. And then you lose some of those abilities to argue in court that this was unlawful, because you were at any point in time, you were free to go. So it's really important to kind of understand the interaction. And on the podcast, we talked about how sometimes it's almost adversarial to have a conversation with law enforcement officer, because if you say too much, then it's going to be used against you. If you start engaging in the conversation, it's believed to be consensual. And so it's really difficult. And in order to have these conversations, maintain your safety in the community, It's a real fine line of, what you can say and what you can't. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because it's a divide between the relationship in the community and law enforcement. Because on one hand, you want law enforcement there that want to live in a safe community. At the other end of the spectrum there's a little bit of mistrust because you see the news.
Not about it. Yeah.
You see the things that are happening.
You watched the Capitol the other day.
You see what happens in the Capitol. And it's been said. I mean, I don't know that if I were there, that I would have been able to walk into Nancy Pelosi's office and walk out of there that same day. I probably, believe in my heart that I would have been in handcuffs, the plastic ones or the metal ones, some sort of custody.
Yes, sir.
Marched out of there.
That's right.
And so, understanding, the interaction and having an approach to your interaction with law enforcement is crucial. It's important. And you shouldn't start thinking about that the second that you see the lights. Start thinking about it now. What am I going to do? What questions should I ask? So the questions that you should ask, the primary one is, am I being detained? Am I free to leave? Because the spectrum changes whether you're detained or you're not. You're free to leave. Use that. Go ahead and leave the area.
Be out. Don't have a conversation.
Absolutely.
Don't be a chatty patty. Don't try to.
It's not, because then it escalates, and then you say things, and what you thought was a very cordial conversation can quickly turn on you. One of the other things I wanted to kind of briefly talk on and then get to the record clearing is if you're contacted at home. If you are contacted at home and asked to step out of your house, you absolutely do not have to step out of your house. If you are contacted at home, law enforcement says, "Hey, can you step outside?" "No, I'm going to stay inside. I feel safer, here." Well, we want to talk to you. You can talk through the door. There's no problem with that. However, if law enforcement is serving a warrant on your home and they tell you, we'd like to come in, we have a warrant, it is okay for you to say, "Officer, I am going to comply with your request if you have a valid warrant. Can you show me that warrant?" And you show me that warrant, I will absolutely comply with what that warrant says. If you don't see a warrant, there's a possibility that there isn't a warrant. So just verifying that there is a warrant is okay. Again, you're asking the question. If they come in or they're going to force their way in without showing you the warrant, say, "Officer, I am going to step out of the way. I do not want you to break down my door. I don't want you to hurt anyone inside. I am not consenting to you coming in my home and searching my home. However, I am not going to resist in the sense that you are going to break down my door or you're going to come in and harm anybody inside my house."
So you're making it clear that I'm not consenting to this. So what that means is, if that warrant didn't pass muster, then that's going to be, I forget if they call it fruit of the poisonous tree or whatever it is, that's going to be an illegal search.
It's an illegal search. And everything that's recovered from the point that search is illegal gets excluded.
Excellent. Let me give you this quick question real fast. Paulette asked, what if an officer asks for my identification? And I think it's in the context of being in the car. Asked for my identification and answered for on the street as well. Do I have to show them my ID?
So California is a state where you do not have to identify yourself. So that's why I said, when you're on the street, am I being detained? Am I free to leave? Because if an officer tells you that, no, you're being detained, and I believe that you just left Millie's store and we believe that you stole something, now they're investigating a crime. And if they're investigating a crime, then there is some investigative authority that they have to identify who they're speaking with. Again, if you're walking across the street, you're jaywalking, and they stop you for jaywalking, they got to know who they're writing the ticket to. So then in that instance, yes, you've got to identify yourself. I saw you walk across the street. There's a vehicle that had to stop and let you walk across the street. I'm going to write you a jaywalking ticket, or, it was jaywalking, and you give me your ID, because they may not give you a ticket. They may give you a warning. But in that instance, yes, you need to identify yourself while they're investigating a crime. However, if there's no crime, for instance, you're driving down the street and an officer pulls over a vehicle and he tells you, I noticed that this car is registered to Martha Jones, but you don't look like a Martha. Is this your vehicle? Now, that stop is unlawful. Right? But then again, we're trying to, return safely. And, if you're like me, the 3 thumb punch, you recorded that. You recorded the officer saying that I stopped you because the car is registered to Martha Jones and you don't look like Martha Jones. There's 1,000 reasons why you could be driving a car that's registered to Martha Jones. You could be Marcus Jones and Martha is your mom and you're 20 and you're in college and your mom's bought you a new car because she's proud of the work that you're doing. So there are a lot of reasons that you could be driving a car not registered to you. It doesn't make it unlawful that you're driving a car that's not registered to you.
So you'd have to show them the registration, right, if they ask for it, but it's not about you answering 100 questions related to it.
Correct. And you don't even have to justify who Martha Jones is, but license and registration. Again, you're officer. I don't believe that, I have to give this to you, but I'm going to comply with you and give them that. But again, if you've got to record it, we have that interaction. And if anything unlawful happens after that stop or they find anything that they want to arrest you on, then we have recourse to say this stop was unlawful to begin with, and everything that happens afterwards needs to be thrown out. So again, it's those little nuggets of understanding what is my first step. The first step is trying to establish what type of interaction this is. Is it a detention? Am I free to leave? And so once you get to that point, it gets really tricky and it takes legal analysis to say what was correct and what was wrong. But you really want to establish and you really want to be compliant as much as you can. Even if you think that what's happening is wrong, you still want to be compliant. You still want to say, officer, I believe X, but I am going to comply with you because at the end of the day, you want to return home. That's my goal. I am trying to get back home to my wife, get back home to my kids. I want to see my family on the holidays. Even, we didn't get to see each other this, Christmas and Thanksgiving. But again, it's thinking forward about what the goal is. And the goal is to be safe. And, I don't want any harm to, having the officers in during the interaction with me. Another thing that I want to touch on, San Bernardino County is one of the counties that issues concealed carry permits. And so if you are contacted by law enforcement and you have a concealed carry permit, you need to let them know that when you're stopped, hey, I have a licensed firearm on me. It is in X location. You want to be clear about that. Share with them where that is, because at the end of the day, you don't want them pulling you out of the car and then finding a firearm on you or in the car. You want to start establishing that early. It's a relationship where you are trying to say, look, I don't mean you any harm. I'm trying to get out of this safely. And so we want to do the little things. Again, putting ego on the curb. Do you have to? You absolutely don't have to say a word, but you want to survive the contact. You want to go home to your family at the end of the day. And that's what this is all about. It's about doing things safely. It's about trying to put the officer at ease so that you're safe. And let them know, hey, the firearm is in this location. My wallet and my ID is in this location. How do you want to handle this? Because I don't want you to get jumpy or be afraid and start pulling out your gun and thinking that I'm a threat to you. In this instance, I'm just exercising the right that I've been given, and I'm trying to do it legally and lawfully. And so you have that conversation and you kind of say, hey, this is what this situation is.
Excellent. Give us some information on the 1203 hearings, the expungements and that kind of thing. I know it's a big thing for people.
Absolutely. So my office is, one of the counties that's leading the charge on getting records cleared up. We've got a unit dedicated to helping people clear up their records. You have some contact information that I believe you're going to post up at the end where we can be reached, phone number, by email. Individuals reach out to us all the time and say, hey, I want to go through the process of clearing up my record. 1203.4, which is the record clearing mechanism to get a case dismissed and taken off of your record. And that's huge, especially now when society is understanding that people need to be given a second chance to move forward. Because we have people that have things that are on their records that are 20 years old, and they're still being punished with going and trying to get a job. And they're saying, well, we don't have this. We can't give you this position because of your record. And so what our office does is we look at a person's entire criminal history that's in San Bernardino County. I am limited to handling cases that originate out of San Bernardino County. However, we do have resources for other counties, other offices that can assist if the case is in LA County, if it's in Orange County, if it's in San Bernardino County, San Diego County. up north, we have resources where we can connect you to those different offices. If you reach out to us, you have questions about the process, we're more than willing to answer those questions about the process. And we've had a lot of success over the past couple of years with getting these petitions filed with the courts and the courts granting these petitions. So we're really successful in what we're doing. We've been working at it. We fine-tuned our process, and it's really rewarding for us to see someone's record get cleared and them get that job. Sometimes it's even, people that have been working with the county and they want a promotion, and they have to, get something cleared up with their record so that they can get that promotion. So it's really rewarding to see the impact that you can have on someone's life by clearing up their record. So if you have any, family members or friends or yourself, and you want to reach out to us, give us a call at the number, give us a call or email us, and we'll respond. We generally get the packets out same day or within a day. And we get to work on those as soon as we get them back in our office. There's a process that we go through. They're screened we have paralegals that are doing the screening. We have attorneys that finalize the screenings, and then the petitions filed, sent to the court. And, we have attorneys that actually make appearances on those petitions in front of the court. So anytime it's opposed by the DA's office, we have someone there that is arguing on behalf of our client as to why it should be granted. And if in the instance that we disagree with the ruling, we've often filed reconsiderations, and we've provided additional information as to why we thought that the ruling may have been incorrect. So it's helpful to have us, because it's, us going in there arguing on your behalf. We're doing the research. We're providing the documentation to the court. We get declarations from our clients as to why it's important for them to have this record cleared. So that's what we're doing, man. And it feels really good. I'm really excited about the work that we're doing in our office. And I can tell you that there are some very, very competent attorneys in the San Bernardino County Public Defender's Office. A lot of us take pride in the work that we do. It's a badge of honor to do the work in which we do. I said I've been in the trenches for a long time. I enjoy it. The work is still great. So I know there's a stigma, and, I can't solely overcome that stigma of what a public defender is or does. But one client by client, we're out here reaching out, and there are going to be some bad interactions. You can't avoid that. It just happens. Sometimes there's just conflict of personalities, and, person by person, case by case, I try to do my best with, individuals, and I am human. I will make a mistake. I err. And I've even had a client point out, an analysis like, no, I think this is right because of X, Y, and Z. And it's okay. It's a practice. That's why they call it the practice of law, because we're not
science.
Perfect. No, absolutely not. It's evolving. It's growing. And so, being open to having a relationship with your client where you are open to criticism, open to understanding, open to growing and getting better. So I can say that I work with a team of really good people. And so if you want good work done, feel confident that you will get that from our office.
Yeah, the public defender, the chief is Chris Gardner, is a good friend of all of ours. Give us this real fast.
Chris recently resigned. The interim.
Did he?
Yes, it was the end of December. The new
my word! I didn't know.
Yes, the new interim is Tom Song.
So, okay, wow.
And so those two worked really close together. So
Okay.
there's a continuation of work and resources that Chris started a great thing. He got us on a great path, and we all believe that that Tom is the next person up that will continue in the legacy that Chris started.
Excellent. And so Dana Benjamin asked the question whether automatic expungements are already in place. My understanding is expungements might be available, but there has to be paperwork filed related to them to affect them, correct?
So you have to file a petition with the court. There were some cases that were in the past, they were felonies, and then they have been reclassified as misdemeanors. So there was a reclassification of a number of cases. And so I have a stack of exhibits where the district attorney sent us, where they were just going to try and make those corrections themselves. But in the instance of a case where it was a felony that you're trying to get reduced to a misdemeanor that was not already done automatically by law, we do have to file a petition with the court and have that addressed by the court, because the district attorney has an opportunity to oppose that petition. And so, there with the law, you have to file, they have to get their opportunity to respond and reply. And so we do all of that to take care of our clients' needs.
Excellent. So I think it sounds like the rule of thumb is to assume you have to file. And if you get surprised that you actually didn't, then great. That's why the resource that we gave you in terms of being in contact with the PD's office can be helpful. Another quick dumb question. Anybody can go to the PD's office in San Bernardino County, right? There's nothing that like economically disqualifies me for it. So
technically, yes, you are supposed to meet a minimum threshold in order to qualify for the public defender's office. Our office is willing to help anybody that needs our services. Now, if you own a house in San Jacinto, is it Mount San Jacinto, I think, or Altaloma up in the hills, go ahead and retain private counsel. I mean, that's the right thing to do. However, if you are someone in the community and you are having a difficult time and struggling financially, absolutely, you should reach out to our office, because that's what we're there for.
Excellent. And the petitions are available online, correct?
The petitions are available online. However, we ask that you reach out to us, because we file them. We make sure that the correct boxes are checked, because some individuals may not qualify per se for a 1203.4. However, there is a 1203.42, which is in the interest of justice, where we are filing a petition saying that this person doesn't qualify on its face. However, look at these factors. This time has passed. This person has done this sort of rehabilitation. This is who they are today. And so we're asking in the interest of justice to dismiss this particular case.
Excellent. That's huge. Derek Smith, hey, that's the information right there. Info is power. And, it's really important to, California is fairly progressive and / liberal about some of these things. There are a lot of things that years ago weren't crimes that were felonies that are now misdemeanors, or they're wobblers or whatever else. So, get the information that you need to help yourself the best way you can, and know now. Let's demystify the notion that San Bernardino County Public Defender is not on their game and they're not looking to be a help. So Derek, like always, I appreciate you. You my guy when I have a criminal law question. So you already know what that is, because I know that you live and breathe it, brother. So I appreciate you putting us all in the loop, my friend.
Thank you. I hope the information is helpful. Again, I want everybody to be safe. I want you to come to me or come to my colleagues in the best position, because at the end of the day, it's about having your truth heard. And, the street is not the place to litigate it. It's in the courtroom with us. Let us help you. So again, I hope this is helpful. I hope that it's giving you an approach in how to deal with these interactions. And, I hope that it helps you stay safe. So again, Joe, whenever you need me, man, reach out. And I will do my best to help.
Thank you, my friend. Best to you and yours, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. There it is, there it was, and there it shall be. Information is power. A couple things I want to take from this. I want you to take from it and know that info is power, and there's much info to be obtained and to be brought down and to be internalized so that you can use your situation. Don't assume, if you're not an expert in a particular area, that you do or don't have an issue. Ask someone that knows, and you've got a good starting place right here with people that actually care about what they do. And if your area of law that you need help on is not what we've covered, we can still get you to someone that you need to talk to. So that's really important. And by the way, when you go to the attorney or you go to the mental health professional and get the information from them, listen, take them to heart for that information. Get that information, embrace it. Derek talked a lot about what allows him to help you the best way possible. And that's understanding what your rights are and thinking of that ahead of time. It's terribly unfair and morally wrong that we have to think that way. But the best thing we can do is think ahead. In an employment situation, you shouldn't have to go to work and write down everything that's happening as it's happening. But if there's potential for this to be involved in litigation, you've really got to let us know. So information is power. I want to thank everybody that talked with us. Check out our Joe Speak podcast. You can see it not only on YouTube, they've put it up there, the link there, but also everywhere, all of the podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio app, SoundCloud. It's all over. We've been on a little bit of a hiatus, but go check out our shows. We've had them with a public defender, with a prosecutor, a fantastic prosecutor. We've David Rabb. We've had it with a former police chief. We've had it with Carl Douglas, formerly the O.J. Simpson defense team, civil rights attorney. So interesting information out there. We've got a series coming up on Where We Go Now. Sam Casey's going to be a guest. We're going to have several other people be a guest. We're going to have a civil rights leader be a guest. So help connect the dots. The greatest thing about what we all do is we're passionate and we love to connect the dots to help you. So help us help you by getting us information, being as thorough as you possibly can. Be patient with us. We'll be patient with you. Make sure you let folks know about this resource. This resource is going to be there and available. It's going to be where you can follow a link, go directly to the particular people that spoke. If you wanted to just get Derek, if you wanted to just get Camel LeGray, if you wanted to just get Jonathan Buffon, people will be able to do that. So let folks know. There's still plenty of people that need to know about these resources. Also, give us some feedback. Let us know what you liked. Let us know something you may want to know more about next time. We plan to do this on a regular basis and to bring resources and information to the community. So on behalf of Alchemy Studios, Jordan, Jasmine, and the team, the marketing department at McCune Wright. Dan's been here babysitting the whole time. Dan, I appreciate you doing that. And Ricky and Juniper and Gary and Jack and our guys Rich and everyone else. We want to thank you for attending. Please let folks know that this is an available resource, and please let folks know to care that we care. We want to be helpful to you. Get in contact with us at our law office. JLR at McCuneWright.com. If you're having an issue related to civil rights, if you're having an issue related to employment, if you're in a category of things we may be looking at from a class action standpoint, not only business owners that were having trouble getting PPP from the big banks, as well as people that have issues because of crime-free housing. Do you have a crime-free housing ordinances? Do you have a old conviction that keeps popping up and keeps you from getting a place to stay? Get in contact with us, because that's something that we're looking at in a way we want to be helpful. Thanks everyone for being with us, and we'll talk to you soon. And we are here in the community. We're not going anywhere. Thank you for Sam Casey and Cope and everybody being involved, folks getting the word out. Pastor Josh Beckley, I saw you this morning on your 714 broadcast. Thank you for talking about the event. Thank you for all of the pastors and all of the community leaders. And we will see you soon. Thanks much. Peace.
So I'm joined with Joseph Richardson, a civil rights attorney who is focusing on income and wealth disparity, predominantly in communities of color.
Justice is the administration of what's morally right and good. Notice, though, that the key word is morality.
We've got what's legally wrong, and we also have what's morally wrong.
How do I do justice? How can I be John Lewis? How can I be this civil rights icon or somebody that's going to change the world? Got this word, justice. You break it down. What do you get? You get just us. I'm not talking about just us exclusive. I'm talking about including all of us, whether there are 5 billion of us on earth or whether there are 2 people in your living room. Justice is about all of us, just all of us. Doing justice, bringing things together, and moving things forward.
To acknowledge that the entire system has been done wrongly, has the wrong goals, which is conviction and not necessarily justice.
Now, because you've got this inclusive view of justice, just us, now one of the things you're going to do is you're going to bridge build despite differences. You can't want to get things done, need to accomplish things in life, burn bridges, and then wonder why you're swimming. Justice is not necessarily agreeing with everyone on every issue. Justice is going to be balanced. So the next thing you'll do is you're going to create safe spaces to have difficult conversations. That includes asking tough questions.
Confident, or are we so satisfied with the fact that we've gotten a few folks that are caught red-handed getting fired that we don't deal with the larger culture?
Because tough questions need to be asked and tough issues dealt with, you have to validate each other's humanity so that you can talk, put it all on the table, and move us forward. Let's get together and do justice.